Same as the other members, but I just wanted to be sure that you and Ronnie were on the same page. Sharon.
I know, right? We're on the, swimming.
I'd like to call to order the Middletown City Council meeting for Tuesday, January 18th, 2022. If we could start with a moment of meditation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. King, could you please call the roll for us?
Mr. Farrell.
Here.
Ms. Nenny.
Here.
Mr. Moon.
Here.
Mr. Muterspaw.
Here.
Mayor Condrey.
Here. First this evening, we have a presentation from the Middletown's First-Time Homebuyer Program by Lori Distola? Distola. She's from the Neighborhood Housing Services of Hamilton. Do you have a clicker for her, perhaps? And I'll warn you, that microphone, you kind of got to get right up on it for us to hear you very well, so.
Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Back.
Top one is for the big one. Oh, gotcha. Thank you.
Just hand it to me when you're done.
Okay. Hello today. My name is Lori Distola, and I'm from Neighborhood Housing Services of Hamilton. We're located in Butler County and service the entire Butler County area, and have been partnering with the City of Middletown for 21 years on the Down Payment Assistance Program. I'd like to go over a little bit about the Down Payment Assistance Program and who it serves, and especially for the City of Middletown. A little history, a little backdrop about Neighborhood Housing Services. Neighborhood Housing Services is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, which is, to serve low to moderate income households in Butler County and the city of Kettering. The organization was founded in 1992 to address issues with homeownership, therefore the lack of, to low to moderate income families, and to revitalize neighborhoods. In addition to advance our mission for housing program, NHS became a chartered member of NeighborWorks America in 1994 and has since become a HUD-certified community housing development organization, in our world known as a CHODO, and a HUD-certified counseling agency. Our mission statement, Neighborhood Housing Services of Hamilton, is a nonprofit community development organization dedicated to building affordable, healthier, and stronger communities through partnerships with government, business, and local community leaders. A little bit about our historic outcomes. NHS has always stayed true to its original mission to provide lending opportunities to low and moderate income individuals and families. During its past 29 years of service, NHS has closed 4,095 loans, provided $212,527,864 million in permanent financing to low to moderate income households. Our lines of business include lending services, homeownership promotion services, foreclosure prevention services for existing homeowners, community building and organizing, real estate development, asset and property management, and community-based economic development. NHS provides the following programs and services all throughout Butler County. Lending services. NHS provides loans for home purchases, home improvements, and micro-enterprise loans. Down payment and closing cost assistance. Homebuyer education and counseling. Foreclosure prevention and counseling. Acquisition and rehab and new construction of single-family homes and rental units. Emergency repairs for existing homeowners. Mortgage, utility, and rental assistance to residents impacted by COVID-19. Having said that, that's a little backdrop information about neighborhood housing services. Now I'd like to go a little bit more into, the program that we partner with the City of Middletown and we have for the last 21 years. And that would be the Middletown Down Payment Closing Cost Assistance Program. The program was designed to increase affordable home ownership opportunities in the City of Middletown. Home buyers can receive up to $5,000 in assistance. Assistance is provided in the form of a 5-year forgivable loan. If the borrowers sell the home before the 5-year loan is forgiven, the borrower will have to pay a prorated portion of the loan back. Applicants must be at or below 80% of the area median income to qualify. As an example, for a family of 4, the total household income cannot exceed $68,300. To purchase a price, there's limits. To purchase an existing home, the limit is $170,000, and for new construction, the limit is $250,000 in order to be eligible to receive the funds. Here's a little snapshot that I want to share with the council today about, the services that were performed and the numbers that we assisted from 2021. This would be from January through December through 2021. NHS assisted 43 households, 141 people total in Middletown obtained homeownership with DPA funds totaling $223,970. 43 households obtained 8 hours of homebuyer education from a HUD-certified housing counselor. All DPA recipients are required to obtain 8 hours of homebuyer education from a HUD-certified counselor. It's one of the stipulations. Middletown DPA funds, $223,970, leveraged $4.2 million in permanent financing for low to moderate income households to purchase a home in Middletown. $118,659 is the average purchase price for those home buyers who received DPA in 2021. One of the things I'd like to point out is that we did assist 43 homeowners this year purchase homes, and we kind of look at it, it's almost assisting one household a week. I mean, close to, not always there, but it averages almost to be one household a week. Here's a continuation. Based on the area median income, AMI, breakdown for those 43 households who received DPA this past year, 60% or 25 households that received DPA were between 80 and 60% of the area median income. 19% or 8 households that received DPA were between 50 and 60% of the AMI. 14% or 6 households that received DPA were between 30 and 50% of the area median income. And 7% or 3 households that received down payment were below 30% of the AMI. In continuation, household makeup for the 43 households who received DPA, 53% or 22 were single households. 24% or 10 were single parent households. 11% or 5 were other households. 8% or 3 were two-parent households, and 4% or 2 were elderly households. The race breakdown for the 43 households received DPA, 90% or 38 households identified as white, 8% or 3 households identified as African American, and 2% or 1 household identified as other. In addition to assisting down payment assistance and low to moderate income households obtain home ownership, there is an economic tool with purchasing homes and providing home ownership. I'd like to talk a little bit about what that economic tool and how it's assisted the City of Middletown. The information below is based on the 43 closings, which totaled $4.2 million in permanent financing for low to moderate income households who purchased a home in Middletown. Lender fees, this includes origination fees, was approximately $149,620, of which $52,367 was paid to Middletown lenders, banks, and mortgage companies. Title fees was approximately $85,497, of which $51,298 was paid to Middletown title companies. Realtors' commission fees was approximately $256,649, of which $102,656 was applied to Middletown realty companies and/or realtors. Appraiser fees was approximately $19,350, and unfortunately, we're unable to break down the fees to local Middletown appraisers. I'd also like to give you a snapshot of the last 5 years. We are required to track and follow this program for a minimum of 5 years through HUD. So I'd like to kind of give you just an overall view of, the figures for last year to give you an idea of the assistance that this program has provided to the city of Middletown. As a 5-year snapshot, NHS has assisted 221 households, that would be 669 people, obtain homeownership with Middletown down payment assistance funds totaling $1.1 million. 221 households obtained 8 hours of homebuyer education from a HUD-certified housing counselor. Middletown down payment assistance funds, $1.1 million, have leveraged $22 million in permanent financing for low to moderate income households who purchased a home in Middletown, who probably most likely otherwise would not have been able to do so. 92% of the homeowners still reside in their homes, and this is from the 5-year snapshot. The economic impact for the city of Middletown. The information below is based on the 221 closings, which totaled $22 million in permanent financing for low to moderate income households who purchased a home in Middletown. And again, this is from 2017 to 2021. Lender fees, including origination, was approximately $770,414, of which $269,000 was paid to Middletown lenders, banks, and mortgage companies. Title fees was approximately $440,000, of which $264,000 was paid to Middletown title companies. Realtor commission fees was approximately $1.3 million, of which $528,000 was paid to Middletown realty companies and/or realtors. Again, appraiser fees was approximately $99,000, but we're unable to break down those fees. And that concludes my portion of the down payment assistance and how it's tremendously helped the residents of the city of Middletown. It's been a great partnership. Neighborhood Housing Services, would like to congratulate and thank the city of Middletown for being so proactive and trying to help the citizens not only successfully obtain home ownership, but maintain home ownership, given the right tools. And this program has been, deemed to be very successful in doing that. And if you guys have any questions, I would be more than happy to field any questions you might have at this time.
Yeah, I've used it with clients, and it's fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
I'm
you.
sure Zach has too.
Same here. When I started in 2013 in real estate, and all my friends couldn't afford a down payment back then, and they were buying these houses for $50,000-$60,000, and now they're worth $200,000. They built generational wealth for their family for the rest of their future, and that's the dream of what this program is. So it's cool to see all these years later how it's still helping people, and it's helped people in the past and everything. So.
Well, thank you very much. And most of our clients, a lot of them are first-generation homeowners. And most of the clients, this will be the largest investment that they'll ever have or make in their lifetime. So again, kudos to the city for supporting this program, and we greatly appreciate it.
I'm curious, how many of the residents actually stay in their homes after the 5-year period? Do you have any statistics on that?
I don't have.
Is that something that you guys stay in touch with them, or?
We're required to track them for 5 years based on HUD, what's considered affordability period. We don't, because we kind of have so much to track. We don't typically track them too much after 5 years. It's a second mortgage forgivable loan, it's released. But after that, no, we don't track them.
Thank you. And then I was also curious, I appreciate all of the economic impact breakdown, but I was curious if there are any incentives or if there's any way to incentivize the users of this program to use Middletown companies to maybe increase those numbers.
Oh, a local, unfortunately with lending, I mean, you got to be careful. Federally, you're not allowed to steer. It's considered steering. And so we typically give everybody 3 choices. We're allowed to say, but we can't tell them to go here, or we can't give an incentive because then we would be, breaking the federal guideline of steering.
Sure,
Yeah.
that makes sense. I was just curious if there was any way for that number to go up, but, yeah, thank you.
And it's been our experience too with Middletown. A lot of them are Middletown realtors. I know the Middletown title companies are really big, that they've been really successful of keeping the business here. So we're happy to see that because especially with online popping up, you can pretty much get a loan anywhere. So we are happy to see that a lot of it is staying here local.
So a lot of that generation is coming from local Middletown companies who are saying, hey, did you know about this program?
Yes, they're our biggest supporters. I mean, we're a nonprofit, so we don't have a huge, marketing budget. It's word of mouth, and it is those local companies, that helps their clients, and, we're able to assist them.
Sure, that's great. Thank you.
Well, and years ago, I don't know the statistic, but this helped keep the Middletown market alive back in 2013 and 2014. It was the only way people were able to buy houses, so it's always been a tremendous asset.
Yeah, even like you said, when the foreclosure phenomenon hit, I mean, what we've realized too, I mean, people, I don't even want to say modest means, working class people, a lot of people work paycheck to paycheck, and it's that down payment that prohibits them from, they may have good credit, their debt ratios may be good, but what we've seen is that down payment is the biggest barrier from attaining homeownership.
When you think about like my mom, for example, who's on Social Security, always pays all her bills, but she lives on a fixed income. She can't save up that extra money. Well, they don't not deserve the opportunity to own a home because of that, so this gives them that opportunity as well.
Yep, that's correct.
Go ahead.
Are there any efforts to specifically look at, I know the ethnic breakdown of the home buyers is disproportionate to what our population is. Is there any attempt, and like how is the communication, I guess how is it communicated? Just hoping we can, diversify maybe the ethnic recipients.
Well, one of the things about our programs too that we try, as a nonprofit is that we work with all of our clients no matter how long it takes. So, there's some people who walk in, they're ready to start the program the day they walk in, and there's other people who aren't. So we try to, give them the proper tools and education and financial and budgeting or whatever it is that they need as far as that. So we may still have some in the pipeline that's not reflecting on the numbers that have actually closed on their homes is what I guess I'm trying to get to. We do try to network with other organizations. We partner with a lot of nonprofits, from communities to self IDA programs. We do try to reach out to other, and vice versa. We try to assist them with their clientele, trying to get the word out as far as that goes. And like I said, I think, we've got a lot of people in the pipeline that may not be as reflective in the total numbers.
That was going to be my question too. Just would love to see some promotion in some of the churches or neighborhoods to get the demographics more reflective of the community.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
but great work, great program.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just one more question.
Okay.
I was curious also, as you were making your presentation, about how many homes utilized this program in Middletown versus the remainder of your service area. What was sort of our percentage versus the other communities or your program area at large?
So just so you know, we partner with City of Middletown for DPA. We partner with City of Hamilton for DPA, and we also partner with Butler County. So in essence, we cover the entire county with DPA. And we've been doing so for the last 23 years. And having said that, Middletown utilizes the program more so than the other two, probably almost 2 to 1. So it's very highly utilized in Middletown.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Well, thank you for your time too.
Thank you.
Next, we have our citizen comments. We have 3 of those this evening.
Thank you.
And And we will start with Rachel Caldwell. And after Rachel, I have Michael Smallwood, followed by Lynette Devine. I'll just remind everyone we have 3 minutes available and ask you to state your name and address for the record when you come up to the dais.
Hi, I'm Rachel Caldwell. I live at 2116 Sheffield Street. Sorry, I'm nervous.
It's understandable.
I'm actually up here today. I know a few of you, but I don't know all of you. I actually presented myself to the Board of Education in remarks of the bullying. My daughter was physically assaulted. Not only was my daughter physically assaulted, other students were physically assaulted. The videos were shared in the police department. The videos were shared on social media. I called the school 27 times in 4 days to let them know that my daughter was going to be jumped. They ignored that. I'm coming to you guys for help, honestly. Middletown, our school is failing. It is failing miserably. And I know that a lot of the bullying starts at home. I'm very well aware of that. But a prime example, the school needs help. We have one resource officer. He's a very good one. Like, I love him. He needs help. That poor guy needs help. And I know Middletown Police Department is short already. I do know that. They need help. Like, the school system itself, the board needs help. Like, if anybody needs help, the school board needs help. I don't know what we can do with the school board. I don't know, can we clear them out? Can we put them through counseling? I mean, something's gotta be, because they are not. The school board is not helping us at all. Middletown is literally in the lowest. I think it was 788th school in the state of Ohio. I think we hit 788. So that's basically all I wanted to say. I don't know. But yeah, we're asking for help for Middletown City Schools. We need help. We need help. We need more resource officers. We need programs for these kids. I don't know what kind of program yet. I can come up with one maybe, but we need something. Middletown has to change. This school district is horrible. It's so bad, I'm nervous to send my child back to school tomorrow. She hasn't been to school since August, and she's supposed to start school tomorrow morning. I am scared to death. I'm not even gonna lie. I am terrified to send her back to school because it's off the chain. Middletown City Schools, especially the middle school and the high school, are off the chain. They are fighting every time you turn around, they fight. They're swinging on each other. The teachers, I get the teachers, they're tired. I do. We gotta have more help in there. That's all I'm asking for is more help. Middletown City Schools, some kind of help. One resource officer per building is not enough. We gotta have something. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next we have Michael Smallwood.
Hi, my name is Michael Smallwood. I live at 4009 Central Avenue in Middletown. I just have a quick comment on Ordinance 02022-8. I don't necessarily have an objection to the ordinance as it's written. My only objection would be that, according to the proposal, the Shalom Network shut down last year. It stated that the homeless utilized the city hall and the lobby of the police department. It's not an emergency for this legislation to be pushed through so quickly. You guys knew last year that the Shalom Network was shut down. You know that it gets cold every January. And in the alternatives, it says that you would be abdicating your responsibility to be proactive. And I would not call shoving through a ordinance in 2 days proactive. I would call it reactive. It should not be a surprise that at the end of January it's cold. And it seems like this is all of a sudden have to figure out where to put these people. This should have been done properly, and it should have been given the proper amount of time for public comment. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. And the last citizen comment I have is Lynette Devine.
Hello, my name is Lynette Devine. I'm at 4000 Central Avenue. That's across from the property in question on the homeless issue. And I took advantage of the Neighborhood Housing Services Program in 2006 when I bought my house here. I'm still here after 15, 16 years, FYI. I've had concerns before at the senior center when they were about to issue it, they were asking for a liquor license. And I had great concerns about that. They already had rented out a room frequently and for wedding receptions and whatnot, and it would be extremely noisy into the wee hours of the morning. You'd have to call the police, ask them to come and get them to turn it down and all of that. And so that apparently didn't happen, no liquor license. But equally disturbing is this proposal to drop homeless people into that situation for there. It's a residential neighborhood. You like to feel safe when you go outside. I've recalled going outside to walk my dog at dusk, and there was somebody across the street in the shadows, shadow boxing and yelling in front of the senior center as it happens. Then they crossed the street towards me, and I'm like, I need to go back in my house right now. You know, you don't. And then a couple of homeless people came by one night when I was putting out my garbage. Scared me. That's something that I don't often see there. And I wouldn't want to see that start, to have them, you know, just that be their target place to come. It's not an appropriate solution for the problem, as the other gentleman said. I just object to that wholeheartedly, and I believe there must be some other solution that can be found. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have our council comments. We'll start with Mr. Muterspaw.
Just bear with me if I start coughing. I've been sick for 2 weeks. No, it's not COVID. So if I start coughing and walk out, forgive me for that. So I'll save most of my comments for the legislation, I think. But I hope everybody had a happy new year, and appreciate all the comments on the agenda tonight through the messaging and the emails. And, you know, you're heard. You're being heard, so trust us. That'll come up, I'm sure, a little bit later. That's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Moon.
Yes, I have no other comments. I'll reserve my comments for the legislation.
Ms. Nenny.
Similarly, we've got an interesting docket here tonight, so again, like Councilman Muterspaw mentioned, I appreciate all the citizens who reach out directly with their questions and concerns. They certainly weigh in and factor to decision-making, so I encourage that and would ask you to continue to do that. I did notice that we had some COVID-19 tests here at our desks, which hopefully means that they are in stock and available at the health department. I know as a local business owner, I have utilized that service that the health department offers. I think they also have them at the libraries. But if you've got people who have been exposed, you know, it's nice to have those tests available. So I appreciate that and all of the work of the health department through this sixth season. You know, it's not just COVID, it's all kinds of things that go around this time of year. So I hope that you all stay healthy, and that's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Mr. Farrell.
Pretty much the same thing for me. I guess I'll save all comments for legislation, go from there. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have no additional comments this evening to add to that, which brings us to City Manager reports. Mr. Palahniuk.
Yes, good evening, Madam Mayor, members of City Council. A couple items I wanted to mention. Our at-home program, and that is an acronym for Affordable Transformative Housing Opportunities Made Easy, sort of a version of an affordable home-orama that we want to roll out this year in the Oakland neighborhood as part of our State Route 4 redevelopment, Oakland neighborhood revitalization. We have a call for proposals that will be due back by Friday of February 4th. The idea is to support and encourage and sanction and partially subsidize 10 new single-family infill home builds in the area around the Vale site on lots that the city has acquired over time. And after those proposals come in and they are judged and evaluated and determined and approved by City Council, we're hoping for a program that will be between May and August, where the homes would be built, and then the event would be between September and October, where there would be new homes available to be toured and seen as part of this program. So look forward to more of that, but know that that request for proposals is out there now and due back Friday, February 4th. We wanted to bring to your attention this evening, because it's a matter of policy, and we've gotten some inquiries. We have a current moratorium in place on medical marijuana of any form, and we have recently gotten a couple of inquiries from developers who have contemplated the building of medical marijuana cultivation, well-regulated, well-capitalized, exclusively indoors as a business. And typically, of course, we deal with a lot of different businesses, and if they employ people and they're a good business, et cetera, we would want to deal with it. But obviously, in this case, we are blocked by that piece of legislation, which there's a moratorium in our community that wouldn't allow that to happen. So we right now can only answer to those folks that make that inquiry that couldn't happen here. But I wanted it to bring to your all attention, because if that is a policy that you'd like to change or like to pursue, there is interest out there by developers that would look to do that as a business. So Brent wanted to bring that to your attention if that's something to be discussed or thought about. But it is a policy question, and right now our only answer to them is it's not allowed or available here. So wanted to bring that up. Also wanted to bring to your attention, we have had some staffing issues. The Omicron, the COVID-19 spike has certainly affected our organization, like many places, to the point that we have done some really creative things with staffing and trying to have some folks work remote, and we've had to this week actually close down our acceptance of bill payments during the noon hour in order to just manage the staff that we have available currently. We've seen a lot of firefighters that are out. We're worried, obviously, in some cases about staffing if we'd have a big snowstorm, but we're dealing with it. But just know that it has been an issue, and we hope, obviously, that this spike, as quickly as it went up, maybe can go down. As a result of that, we have required employees while they are in the building to wear face coverings. So you may have seen that, and that's why we're appearing that way tonight. I also wanted to note that the Airport Commission meeting has been moved to Tuesday, January 24th at 6 p.m. here in council chambers, and that is largely as a result because there will be a public information session on the airport master plan for the 2-hour period preceding the Airport Commission meeting. So between 4 and 6 o'clock, there will be here in council chambers on the evening of Tuesday, January 24th, a public session on the airport master plan that will be just prior to the Airport Commission meeting that will succeed it that evening. That information on the airport master plan is available and will be posted to the city's website as of today. And that is my report. Thank you.
Mr. Palahniuk, on the 10 new builds in Oakland,
Yes.
is the RFP for one contractor to do all the builds?
No, we are hoping for at least 4 to 5 builders, contractors, so that they might each perhaps get 2. Now, if we don't get as many, it might be 3, but the goal is to have, much like you would see in a sort of home-orama kind of event, a number of styles, a number of builders, so that we can show the community, the area, that, hey, Middletown is a great place to build a new home, a modest new home, and create enough sort of critical mass within one area, in our redevelopment area, to really sort of showcase that and to do exactly what you might typically see with home-oramas at higher end, but this is just a more modest, affordable in an area of the community that can really need that sort of jump start. And then we think, if that's in and around the Vail site, as that develops as well, now we've really created that kind of critical mass as a real jump start to, say, a market that otherwise wasn't there.
And is this all using the ARPA dollars? Is that the?
Largely, yes. But it may require some additional budget dollars that we have in other funds, but it is largely ARPA funding, yes.
And Mr. Palahniuk, these are all city-owned properties. Do we have a sort of an inventory or database of other city-owned properties that would be appropriate throughout the city that, again, they could use as an example and say, all right, well, this is a home that fits this size lot in Oakland, and that home-orama really spur a development throughout the city of other city-owned vacant properties?
We do. And as you know, some of those are subject to or available through our so-called side lot program because they're not really buildable, they're too small. And then others that are buildable, we hope that this will sort of create that that interest and then that ability to say there is a market for it and that we'll build on that and expand on it. So if this works well the first time, we might continue it either citywide or do it in different areas to do a similar kind of jump start.
I definitely welcome any citizens' input on the medical marijuana issue. I actually spoke to Rep. Hall yesterday about that, and he said that it's one topic that they have gotten little feedback on whatsoever from constituents, which is kind of shocking to me. So even at the state level, they're not really sure where people stand on it. So I'm sure my council members would also agree. We'd love to hear from you guys and your thoughts on that one.
On the city website, there is a new link that people can go to on the city website, and they click one link and it'll send an email to all council members. So that is an easy way to be able to share your thoughts that wasn't available before.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
If I could also, Madam Mayor, just so that everybody knows, so you get kind of a sense of what we're talking about, this would only be in an entirely, completely enclosed manufacturing building without windows. You wouldn't see it. It would not, have scent or odor come out of it. It would be, air purified. It would look for all the world like any other manufacturing building. It's just that it would be agriculture, in this case medical marijuana, happening indoors. So probably a little bit like what you might imagine with the 80 Acres Farms in Hamilton, indoor growing. It's just in this case, the growing would be much more regulated, much greater security, different kinds of people employed for different reasons, but it's a business. But obviously, that type of business, so, currently it's not allowed in our community, and it would have to something that you'd have to contemplate and change if that's what you wanted to pursue.
Now, Mr. Palahniuk, the moratorium is on any kind of medical marijuana business, correct? So whether it's agricultural or for sale, the moratorium covers all of that for an indefinite period of time.
Yes.
Right now.
And so you hit on it, either dispensaries at retail or the cultivation at wholesale. And we could, for instance, choose to end the moratorium on one but not on the other. So if you had no desire to have dispensaries at retail, then we could continue that moratorium, while maybe you wanted to have the economic development of the cultivation at wholesale, or vice versa. So there are ways to bifurcate that or continue the moratorium entirely.
And do we have information on the economic impact that lifting such a moratorium would have if it was just agricultural versus also including the retail sales? Do we have some statistics on how those impacts have affected other communities? I would be interested if you could provide that. And, in terms of feedback, I'm curious whether citizens have an issue with one versus the other, or all encompassing. I think that there are some clarifications that it'd be interesting to understand from the citizens' perspective.
And that's a good point. We do not have any of that currently. It's something we would have to research. We could do that, try to get you some additional information.
Just to understand that impact, that economic impact that we would necessarily be missing out on or pushing into another community.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how many communities, say in the state of Ohio, do one or the other or both, but it's something we could research.
That would also be something that would be, I think, beneficial in decision-making. Thank you.
And just to remind Middletown citizens, the recreational use of marijuana is still illegal in the state of Ohio. So I don't know about you all, but I can smell it all over the place. Got a good nose, so.
Although medical use is permitted.
Right, I said recreational.
Yeah, I'm just clarifying.
Yes. Okay, great. That brings us to the, did you have anything else, Mr. Palahniuk, tonight?
I did not, thank you.
That brings us to consent agenda. And Ms. Skank, will you please present that for us this evening?
For your consideration this evening, we have to receive and file the following Board and Commission minutes. The Planning Commission from October 13th, 2021. Historic Commission from November 18th, 2021. Board of Health from December 14th, 2021. To confirm the personnel appointments of Nicholas Kolak to the position of firefighter EMT in the Department of Public Safety, Division of Fire, and James Metz to the position of city planner in the Development Services Department. To confirm the promotional appointment of Justin Scott to the position of equipment operator in the Department of Public Works and Utilities to the Division of Street Maintenance. To receive and file oaths of office for Anna Matalia, Margaret Van Valley, and Derek Brown, and to proclaim January 23rd through the 29th, 2022 School Choice Week.
I'd move that the issues and actions set forth on the consent agenda be approved.
Second.
Ms. St. Clair, please call the roll.
Ms. Nenny,
Yes.
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Muterspaw,
Yes.
Mayor Condrey,
Yes.
Mr. Farrell.
Yes.
Great. And we'll be presenting legislation this evening.
I will be.
right.
Now that Mr. Mulligan is no longer here, I will need a motion to waive the charter provisions requiring a second reading and other emergency provisions, specifically for agenda legislation items number 7, which is ordinance number O-2022-08, agenda number, goodness gracious, agenda number 8 item, ordinance number O-2022-09, agenda item number 9, resolution number R-2022-03, and agenda number item 10, resolution number R-2022-04.
I would like to move that, to waive the charter provisions requiring a reading on 2 separate days and to declare ordinance O-2022-08, ordinance number O-2022-09, resolution R-2022-03, and resolution number R-2022-04 as an emergency measure and read one time only.
Do we have a second? St. Clair, please call the roll.
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Muterspaw,
Yes.
Mayor Condrey,
No.
Ms. Nenny,
Yes.
Mr. Farrell.
Yes.
And thankfully, I've learned the difference between O and 0, which I messed up last time. So first, I'll call agenda item number 1, ordinance number O-2021-127, an ordinance amending section 452.15, the city parking facility fees of the codified ordinances, and this is a second reading.
So move for adoption.
Second.
Mr. Palanick, did you have anything you wanted to add to this one?
I do. Madam Mayor, members of council, you may recall in this one last time, we had discussed whether or not the fees should be established in the ordinance or whether there should be a mechanism in the ordinance to allow council to look at them yearly. And we determined that we should bring this back in a manner that for the first year, it established it, but then annually it would set the fees. And that's what that does now. So this ordinance itself only sets a minimum fee for 2022 and then states that annually thereafter, the city council will establish the fees.
Mr. Palanick, is there any expectation of, or what can we expect as far as enforcement of these parking spots, and who would be enforcing them? And is it active enforcement, or is it reactionary if someone were to call and complain?
Early on, these individual spots would have signage indicating that they're reserved for, particular user only. And then if the typical enforcement would happen if the user who paid for it found someone else occupying their spot, they would then call the police department. Police department would enforce against it at that point.
Okay.
So in some regards, the nature of this would probably get some pretty reactive, desire to have it enforced, because it would be somebody that's paid for it and being restricted from using what they paid for.
Do we know what the fee is for a parking ticket in Middletown? I've never had to.
Chief Burke, there he is.
$8 if you pay it.
$8?
Yeah, we don't enforce it a whole bunch, traffic, unless we get a call, and then we will enforce it, but that's what the fee is.
We need to look into that. I mean, does anybody,
Gas is gonna be more than the same.
yeah, staff's time is.
That's what it is right now.
Okay.
So, but we just don't, that's just something, we get a lot more junk motor vehicles than we do parking complaints. Now, if we get the complaint where they're parked in someone's driveway, that's completely different. We just don't get any parking complaints too often.
So the other complaint that you hear more often is junk vehicles?
Junk motor vehicles, then we go out there.
Junk motor vehicle ticket is only $8.
No, a junk motor vehicle is different than a parking violation.
Different.
Yes, completely different. So a junk motor vehicle is an inoperable vehicle that could be on a driveway, could be someone's front yard, could be on the street that hasn't moved. We sticker those. They have 72 hours to move those, and then those are impounded if they're not moved. But what they're talking about in the parking, it would be a response. We get a phone call that say, hey, this person's parked in my spot, then we would take enforcement.
So how do we, I mean, we obviously need to at least cover our costs on these parking tickets and should be making money on them, right? How does that get updated?
I mean, we can update that. We just have to, come up with the ordinance and update it.
Okay. I mean, I would think if we're going to start actually having people pay for parking and enforcing it, we're going to need to
Yeah, we can
make
do
it
that.
a lucrative program.
Chief, would it be better, since you guys are so understaffed, would it be better to make it a tow-away instead of a parking ticket? Have a sign that the owner or the property owner can just have the vehicle towed if it's in a reserved spot?
I mean, they can tow if it's in a reserved spot, a tow
And that keeps the
company could
police
be
from having to
networked,
respond to
yeah.
parking complaints.
That could be easily done too. It depends on what council wants to do and what the city manager wants
I
to do.
mean, for the police, would it be more beneficial, or does
It'd
it?
be beneficial for us, yes. I mean, a parking complaint's not top priority. We do have a traffic officer. She's already wrote 82 tickets this month, so she's extremely busy enforcing school zones and different areas. But, we'll enforce this however you guys feel fit.
So would that mean that the signage would have to reflect that? And then, I know I've seen signs that have like a phone number for towing. Does that mean we need a contract with the towing company, or how does
Yeah,
that?
you would have to have a contract with a towing company. Like the city currently, if there's crashes throughout town, we contract several different tow companies. So wherever the parking spots would be, that they would just have a contract with a towing company or multiple towing companies.
Mr.
That could be something that can be done.
Yeah. Mr. Palaniuk, do you have any input on the ticketing versus the towing? And, I mean, obviously, we haven't had to deal with this in our community.
This is supply and demand, and right now there's remarkably little demand. So, we'll evolve this program according to need. We'll probably be able to count on one hand and not use all fingers the amount of people that will get these parking spaces early on. So I'm not too worried about enforcement. It's going to be relatively small. And what we want to do more than anything is create demand for parking in our community. That's a good thing. And when you have greater demand, then obviously parking tickets go up, parking costs go up, and, organizational mechanisms to manage them and enforce them are much easier done. But when you have almost no demand, which is what we have, then you have very few people involved, and it's relatively easy. And, either way, we'll handle it, so.
I would like to see a revision or at least some revision of our charge for a parking ticket. I mean, I think our resources are very important, as the mayor brought up, and Chief confirmed. So I think we just have to figure out where that sweet spot is between driving demand and also keeping our officers occupied doing important things.
I mean, the other thing is too, if someone pays a fee to park somewhere, they have a certain expectation of enforcement. And if we don't have the staffing to necessarily do that in an expeditious manner, then we may be better served, having a tow, what would you call it?
Tow zone?
Yeah. So I just want to also tee us up for success when it comes to those looking to use the program. And, if we say we don't have demand now and just don't talk about it, we may as well talk about it if we're going to do it. Now, I don't know if, would we need to do anything with the current ordinance in front of us if we, as a, council or city decided we wanted to have it at a tow zone instead of a parking fee, or is it, I don't know that that's in there, is it? I don't remember reading about.
I would only say that I think Section A of the proposed ordinance allows the Director of Public Works and Utilities to basically create rules to govern the program. So I think, in my mind, you could have the director of Public Works to do that, the kind of the specific
Right.
details. for enforcement.
Okay.
Establish, implement, and enforce rules.
I'm very comfortable with tow-away, so if staff wants to look into that, I'd be supportive.
And
No
if-
problem.
If the cost of the parking spaces is something that can offset that cost to the city or for the tow or whatever, you know, it's.
Any other comments or questions about this one? Okay, Ms. King, will you call the roll for us, please?
Mr. Muterspaw,
Yes.
Mayor Condrey,
Yes.
Mr. Farrell,
Yes.
Miss Nenny,
Yes.
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
All right, moving on to agenda item number 2, resolution number R 2022-01, a resolution to make adjustments to appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Middletown, Counties of Butler and Warren, State of Ohio, for the period ending December 31st, 2022, and it's related to the general fund and for the police, and this is a second reading of the resolution.
So move for adoption.
Second.
Mr. Palanick, did you have anything to add to this one?
Nothing to add from last time.
Any comments or questions from council? Okay, Ms. Skank, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Condrey,
Yes.
Mr. Farrell,
Yes.
Miss Nenny,
Yes.
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Muterspaw,
Yes.
Agenda item number 3, ordinance number O 2022-01, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing a contract with MCI and Butler County Regional Transit Authority for the purchase of 3 45-foot heavy-duty commuter coaches. And again, this is a second reading.
So move for adoption.
Second?
Mr. Palanick, did you have anything to add?
Nothing. Thank you.
Any comments or questions from council? Okay, Ms. Skank, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Farrell,
Yes.
Miss Nenny,
Yes.
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Muterspaw,
Yes.
Mayor Condrey,
Yes.
Agenda item number 4, ordinance number O 2022-02, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with the Ohio Department of Transportation for the replacement or rehabilitation of the bridge that carries State Route 122, which is Columbia Avenue, over the hydraulic canal. This is a second reading.
So move for adoption.
Second.
Mr. Palanick, anything to add?
No, thank you.
Any comments or questions from council? Okay, Ms. Skank, will you please call the roll?
Miss Nenny,
Yes.
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Muterspaw,
Yes.
Mayor Condrey,
Yes.
Mr. Farrell,
Yes.
Agenda item number 5, ordinance number O 2022-06, an ordinance amending the Job Creation Incentive Grant Program created by ordinance number O 2007-33 as amended by ordinance number O 2007-88, ordinance number O 2011-40, and ordinance number O 2012-11. Again, this is a second reading.
So moved for adoption.
Second?
Mr. Palanick, did you have anything to add?
I do not. Thank you.
I personally wanted to reiterate my request that we have a minimum of at least 150% of minimum wage to be expected out of any jobs created that are subject to this. I just want to give another example of why I think it's important. Let's say, so we've got a minimum of 10 employees and a minimum annual salary of $750,000. So for example, say an employer brings in 30 employees and $750,000. Is that what we're looking for to incentivize? That's not what the intent, I believe, is. That would be a $25,000 salary each, and that's not exactly the goal of the program. So I'd like to see that there's a minimum salary expected for each of the jobs. I mean, I'd rather see 200% of minimum wage, because if you look at 150% of minimum wage, that's an annual salary of $29,000, and that's 150% of minimum wage. So, is the goal of the program to add jobs to have jobs, or is it to incentivize quality jobs for our citizens? So that's my personal request. I wouldn't support it as written, but I don't know if any other council members are.
Mayor, I think
interesting.
one of the things that your scenario misses is that that assumes that all of those jobs are full-time jobs, and that doesn't leave room for part-time employment, sort of just in your number scenario. So I guess that gives me pause.
Part-time jobs are considered portions of full-time jobs in the numbers situation.
This new one has the changes in it that we requested on the last one, but you're saying that it needs to have, as far as the minimum wage, it needs to be altered additional.
That's my request. It's
Yeah, that's what
not
I'm-
in there as is, but it's the same thing that I brought up at the last meeting. I just am bringing it up again since it's the second reading, same legislation.
And this, in my opinion, this is an improvement over what we have, and I would like to move forward with approving the improvement. And if we want to have further discussions about how we refine that down further, I think we can do that. But I think this adds some important provisions that the current ordinance doesn't have. So we're operating under an ordinance that doesn't have the clawback, doesn't have some of these other things that we need to get in there. I'd like to get those in first, and if we want to have a second conversation, I'd be open to having that.
I mean, I guess what's the point of council providing feedback and trying to make things better and having two readings when we just approve part of it and say, oh, we'll get it better next time?
I guess I would add that standard Robert's Rules of Order would say if you want to amend a motion, you make the motion to amend, and if it gets seconded, you vote on the amendment first. If the amendment passes, then you vote on the original motion as amended. I mean, that's the way it's done, so representative democracy, correct?
That's how the Robert's Rules of Orders work. Yes.
Thank you. And I'm asking for just council discussion first, and we can go from there. Thank you.
Also, to clarify, I don't believe that this council actually follows Robert's Rules of Order. Just
I don't believe the charter specifies that.
correct.
But it's obviously a good thing to do when you have these sorts of situations, because one could try to influence, or you can simply say, I make a motion to amend. And if it works, then you have the support and it moves on.
So I guess my personal thought is, what's the number we should be at? How do you clarify what the percentage of minimum wage is? 'Cause like you said, if we're bringing in people that are making $30,000 a year, that's below our average household income. Those aren't really the types of jobs. So then you bring it up to 200%, and at what point are we sort of red taping potential businesses to come in?
And I brought up the 150% because that's what the state of Ohio uses in its
Yeah.
job creation incentive program. So I thought at a minimum, we could mimic what the state of Ohio has, and we can always approve greater than that. And, Ms. Lyons brought up the point, we still have to approve each one of these as they come in, which I understand that, absolutely. But I also don't want anyone to be wasting time on a job creation incentive that fulfills technically what's going on here, but really isn't getting at what we want ultimately. So I just want us to get on the same page as much as possible about these and set those minimums while we're having the discussion. So, I make a motion to amend the legislation item to require that the jobs created under this program and subject to the incentive be a minimum of 150% of minimum wage salary.
Hold on, I'm reading.
If there's no second, then the motion will die on the floor. I want to drag this out too long.
I think it's an improvement. I mean, I see where you're coming from, I really do. But I see where Zach's point too, is we don't want to red
don't
tape and
disagree
outmarket
with what you're
ourselves
saying,
to
yeah.
that. I think it is an improvement from what we had before.
Okay, I'm going to take that as the motion failed to have a second and died on the floor. So Ms. Genku, please call the roll for the actual ordinance passing.
Okay. Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Muterspaw,
Yes.
Mayor Condrey,
No.
Ms. Nenny,
Yes.
Mr. Farrell,
Yes.
Okay, agenda item number 6. This is ordinance number O-2022-07. An ordinance amending ordinance number O-2021-64, authorizing the city to enter into an enterprise zone agreement with Phoenix Metals, providing for a new manufacturing facility as a development project and tax exemption pursuant to the Ohio Enterprise Zone Program. Again, this is a second reading.
So moved for adoption.
Second.
Mr. Palaniuk, did you have anything to add to this one?
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Any comments or questions from council? Okay, Ms. Genku, please call the roll.
Mayor Condrey,
Yes.
Mr. Farrell,
Yes.
Miss Nenny,
Yes.
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Muterspaw.
Yes.
Mr. Conover, before we move on, and I hate to belabor the point, could we take a brief recess for a bathroom break? Because I suspect we'll talk about this for a
Yes,
little
thank
bit.
you for,
That'd be all right?
yes.
All right,
We'll take a, what do you think?
5 minutes.
5 minutes. So let's come back at 6:35 before we start this next ordinance.
you.
Thank you. and then yeah, I was going to miss one last year and then decided I was like, all right, Mr. Farrell, get your butt in your seat over here.
Sounded like a formal reprimand.
He's out schmoozing out
Is there
there.
council action along with that?
All right, we're going to return to session here. And we have legislation item number 7 up, I believe.
Yes, I don't believe I read it, so thank you. This is ordinance number O-2022-08, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into contract with Central Connections to provide a short-term warming shelter for the homeless and declaring an emergency.
I just want to, before we make a motion, I would like to request that, that this be read as a first reading. I'm okay with it being an emergency, but if we could vote at the next meeting, I think it would be beneficial to the community to really give this piece of legislation just a little bit of time for consideration and to allow for a little bit more discussion. So I'd like to make a motion that we actually delay the vote from this evening to the next meeting.
May I also offer that you're going to hear some new information tonight as well, so I was going to say, let us at least present this before you make any decisions on it, so.
And,
okay.
and that's okay too. I just didn't want to move to a motion to vote without having adequate conversation.
Yeah, so just also to be clear, that's why I choose to vote against at the beginning of the legislation items, to say no to the emergency legislation aspect of, there are a few of them this evening that I felt that way about, so perhaps in the future we can separate them out and vote if we have an issue on specifically 1 or 2 of them as emergency, we can separate that out and vote on the emergency aspect of them at the beginning of the meeting a little differently.
Yeah, I think the emergency request is so that we do not have to wait for the 30 days for enactment. And so for that reason, I was not opposed to the emergency, but, you know, what I just said.
I think Mr. Palaniuk is, I mean, he's got additional information, we should hear him out. You know, I'm anti-emergency, I don't like emergencies for anything, but, I mean, he has additional information that might help us make a decision on some things.
Thank you. Are you ready for the presentation? Okay.
Absolutely.
Madam Mayor, members of City Council, this item specifically deals with homelessness, and as you know, it is an ongoing, recurring problem that has very few easy answers. We've all dealt with it seemingly forever, and it's hard to come up with good answers. One of the things to work in this direction is we recently put together what I'll call an ad hoc sort of internal organization to deal with homelessness issues. And we did so kind of for a good reason, because we received, as part of the ARPA program, a completely separate allocation of funding through the HOME program. And it's for $1.3 million. It has nothing to do with our $18.9 million of ARPA funds. It's a separate allocation. And at first we thought that that funding would assist us in affordable housing. Unfortunately, as we read that legislation much closer, it is very, very strictly regulated. And the regulation is very clear that the dollars can only be spent to assist homelessness, period. So we put this program together to really start talking about how can we come up with a better, more sustainable long-term solution to some of the homelessness and transitional housing. But in the meantime, our committee started to talk, because the weather was getting bad, about what are we going to do in the wintertime, because, of course, you know, you had Shalom in the past years, COVID hit, and for understandable reasons, the faith-based group of churches that had banded together to allow, the homeless during the wintertime to have warming shelters and places to stay during the cold weather, it wouldn't work anymore. And last year, we sort of just went through it without realizing that wouldn't happen, and we had those folks wind up staying in the police department lobby, a lot of places in our community that probably didn't work very well for either the homeless or the people that were dealing with them. So we were looking for a solution this year. And one of the members of our committee was someone new to our community and someone we're really pleased is part of our community and someone you'll hear from in the near future because she's the new executive director of Central Connections. And while she was brought here to be their executive director and is well qualified to do so, her past history had her working a lot with homeless populations in the Reno, Nevada area. So she brought a lot of knowledge to us and was helping us, and also was gracious enough to say that if you needed a warming shelter this year for a very short period of time, that Central Connections did have this vacant building that used to serve as a hospice immediately behind their building. We were also at the time talking to another group of folks who were looking to acquire a building in another area of town that was actually near Hope House, and they had made a proposal to us, and at the time the costs were substantially more and we couldn't justify them. So we came to you with what we had this evening, and the goal has always been for a very, very short time, temporary place, to have a place that the police department and others can take people in the most cold of temperatures, to have a place that we know they won't freeze to death and they'll have a place to be indoors. And that still is the case. However, knowing what we found out later, actually as late as this afternoon, we now have a new proposal that I would ask you to consider in place of the Central Connections. And I want to say, first of all, Diane Rogers, who is here today, is the new executive director of Central Connections, has been so helpful and so gracious to us and offered that up basically at their cost, and we worked on it. But having said that, there is a location at 1009 Grove Street that is by Hope House that is owned, I think, and managed by another group that has made a proposal to the department, to the city, at a lower cost to be able to do essentially the same thing with staffing. We've talked to our fire department, and one of the problems with many of these facilities is this type of use, typically requires fire suppression, fire alarms, and or in the absence of that, the right kind of staffing of people trained in fire inspection, whatever, because it's kind of an occupancy where people will be there throughout the night. So with that, we've had to sort of figure out how to make this all work, but as a result, we would like to now substitute our request to you not to ask you to have this warming shelter at the Central Connections, but in order to solve some of the neighborhood concerns, as well as at a lower cost, we would propose the 1009 Grove Street location in this case. The costs there where, I will tell you also that the $56,772, which is proposed in your packet as the costs associated with the 3-month warming shelter that would have been at Central Connections, could now be done at the alternative location for $45,360. However, in either location, for us to make it work and to have the properly trained fire inspector type individual that would be there on staff during the hours that are necessary to allow us to have this kind of occupancy, would add about $17,700. So the lower cost alternative is now $63,065 versus the Central Connections at $74,477. So again, our goal has always been to have this at the lowest cost in the least disruptive way and simply find a way at the worst times to have a place for these folks to go and to have a place that the police department can responsibly direct them to, take them to, etc. So we're more than happy to offer up this new location. We hope and we believe it would be less disruptive. There would be fewer neighborhood concerns. It's larger, from what we understand. And Chief Burke, I know you were there today. Do you have other thoughts or comments or maybe additional information that you can add as well?
Can I take this off? Yeah, so when this started, the main reason this started was Shalom was just not able to function this year. We talked to Bill Fugate, who ran it for years, and they average anywhere from 25 to 30 individuals. The Hope House is a great resource, but they do intake at 5 o'clock and they shut it off. If an individual doesn't have a driver's license, which I've heard that's been fixed, if they've been intoxicated, they will not take them at the Hope House. So we were just looking for a warm shelter for them to go in the middle of the night. So when my officers come across someone sleeping at the bus stop in front of BMW or something like that, we have a place to take them. That's all this was trying to do, is find a place for the people to get out of the elements that don't have a place to go. And we first looked at this place on Grove Street. The owners are right back here. But they've been outstanding to work with, so is Diane. So our whole goal behind this was trying to find a substitute for the Siloam during the cold months, and then eventually work together to come up with some kind of a long-term treatment plan for the homeless. So, and I think it's a great location. It's right next to the Hope House. It's within all the services the homeless actually use on a regular basis. I think this would be an outstanding location for the warm shelter for the winter months. The reason, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
The reason it's emergency is just because it's getting colder, and we just want to make sure that we get them in there before the 30 days is up for the second reading. We started looking at this in the beginning of December, I believe, and it's just taken us a while to get to this point. But, you know, that's where we're at, but go ahead.
I was just curious, one of the concerns that I received from one of the citizens was that Shalom at some times had become a place that other communities would drop their homeless people, and that became a recurring problem. So from what you're saying, it sounds like this is a resource that would be used by Middletown Police and Fire. How could we assuage some of those concerns from the citizens, that this becomes a place where everyone drops off?
Well, they're going to have a full-time employee there, and based on the fire's needs, they'll have a fire personnel there full-time too. We're not going to, say that, hey, we have a warming shelter for everyone. This is for our homeless here in Middletown is our goal. I contacted UTS Transportation Service. My goal is to make sure that we can have a meet point for them to pick up, say 6:30 to 7:30 at night, maybe at the police department, and then they get transported to the location. Then in the morning at 7 a.m., they get transported back. So they're going to have to exit at a certain time and, get picked up at a certain time. But it's going to give us the ability, when my officers are working 3 to 11s or midnights, if they come across some people that need a shelter on cold weather, they have a place to go other than the police lobby.
And the pickup drop-off for that transportation service is
the police lobby, yes.
So that would
It used to be
hopefully prevent-
Central Avenue, and then
Yeah,
I
was
got
it
so
in
many
front of one of the
complaints, I
churches?
switched it to the police lobby.
So we're looking at any given night in the winter when it's really
Yes.
cold, 30 or so home.
We're hoping to run this until the end of April. That's our goal, because right now it's been extremely warm. I feel we're going to have a cold front come through in March, maybe even April. We don't know. But that's our goal right now, is to run this until April. And there may be some nights, Bill said, that they may had 10 people there when he ran Siloam. But there's other nights they have 25 to 30 is what an average night would be. Last year when we had that real cold week, we had several people sleeping in our lobby, and we opened up the doors in the hallway and stuff. So we just want to avoid that. We want to find a place that they have somebody that checks them in. They give them masks. They have hand sanitizers. They have bathrooms to use. They have someone monitoring them. I know it was brought up with vouchers. We've tried that. I talked to Jackie Phillips. I think we had 2 people use the vouchers. And then when it comes to hotel, how do you get 25 homeless people to a hotel room and give them access to a hotel and not monitor them, not watch them or anything else? By putting them in a shelter, environment, a warming shelter, you can monitor them. You can make sure they're following the rules. They're not drinking. They're not using drugs, issues like that. So I think it's something that, we're just trying to keep people warm and out of the elements.
I know with Shalom, because I had volunteered with them and Mel and I provided meals, they did not turn people away who may have been
Right.
under the influence, but they kept them from doing drugs or using alcohol
Right.
while they were there. And they were very strict, and
Yep.
if you were being disruptive, then
Asked to leave.
you were asked to leave.
There's many times we would go, because Shalom was great because they rotated churches throughout the city. And if we got a call of someone that wasn't following the rules, we'd go out there. It's going to be the same thing. If the shelter's having a problem, we get called, and an individual's not following rules, we'll be asked to leave. But, you know, we have to have those rules and policies in place. But the good thing about this, if someone has been drinking, we're not going to turn them away. You know, we're going to get them the shelter they need for the night.
And now, how would we be able to utilize our relationship with One City and Victoria to maybe start to create some relationship building? Is that something that we've talked about?
How we got this proposal today, I contacted Victoria. She made the contact, and I had the proposal within 30 minutes. So we're already making those relationships. Our COP officers goes out with Victoria twice a week now. They're also working, they're averaging one person in treatment a week is what they're averaging. They're also working with Woodhaven. They're working with the Coach, which is Safe Housing in Drug Alliance program. They're working with Dr. Moss in the Genesis program. So the more and more people we network with to get the services out to these individuals, the better off we are. And I think we're starting to see that now with Diane Rhodes volunteering the place in Central Avenue, with the new location at Grove opening up, and just the officers getting out there and networking with the homeless. I think they're starting to build that trust that I was hoping for, and I think we're starting to see some results with that.
Chief, I'd also encourage you, I did chat with a board member at Hope House today, and they had a special meeting just on this topic, and they said that they had at least 5 beds that they could set aside for this issue. So I don't know when you chatted with them last, but would encourage you maybe to reach back out here in the next couple of days.
I was on the phone with a board member today.
Perfect, all right.
Yeah, so they eliminated the driver's license issue, which has always been a hurdle for us with the Hope House. Because a lot of these individuals, we're helping them get driver's license, but they currently don't have them. So we're in the process of getting them their birth certificates and getting them the license. So I guess that hurdle's been resolved.
Did those board members express any concern about the change in location of this warming shelter when you talked to someone from Hope House?
I talked to them. I talked to a board member, and they were just saying that's what they said. They had some beds available if we needed them. Just we haven't had too much success with them in the past because a lot of these individuals on the street that are homeless are under influence of drug or alcohol. They won't accept them because of that. So that kind of hurt us getting them into the Hope House. Why this warming shelter is able to do that and get them warm for the night, and then they can be let go the next day.
Can someone explain the fire angle?
That is above my pay grade. I'm turning that over to Frank.
I guess I'll offer a little. Obviously, we have to comply with, fire codes to make sure that life safety is dealt with. And some of these older buildings don't have fire suppression systems, or maybe they don't have updated alarm systems. And, we would typically have to have those. Well, knowing that this is a very short-term temporary thing, you're probably not going to imagine, okay, let's do several $100,000 to put in a sprinkler system. But there are some things that will satisfy the fire department that will still deal with life safety. And that one of those, and Frank can talk about it further, is to have someone properly trained that would be there throughout the time that anybody is occupying it. So that's what we're basically proposing under this sort of short-term temporary thing, that would be our workaround without having to install very expensive fire suppression systems.
I didn't see that in the proposal that was originally put forth to council.
And that's because that's something we only learned about here in the last day or two. Again, very evolving. We're just trying to deal with this particular population at cold weather times and come up with the best solution that we can. So you didn't see it because we didn't know about it. And we learn these things and we deal with them as we learn about them.
Mr. Palahniuk, were you considering this legislation as an emergency to be approved for tonight?
that's the way we first did it, but obviously it's the city council's decision, but the more we put it off, then the later it will be that we have the availability to get these people out of the elements. But we also understand your concerns. We're trying to do everything we can to just get it there, so.
The reason that I ask is because Article 4, Section 3 requires that to be emergency legislation, a copy must be placed on the desk of each council member, which means you have to have a physical copy available to council members before they can vote on emergency legislation. And I certainly don't have that. I don't know if someone else has that or if we could get that to council, but
I don't feel comfortable voting on this without.
Legislation has changed, so.
Yeah.
it has. But what I'm saying is if there is a new proposed piece of legislation, the charter says that we have to have a physical copy of that.
Because we can't vote
council.
on legislation that we don't have.
Or it can be read
In its
full,
entirety.
Okay.
if you want to listen to me.
Is that
Listen to me
something that you have available?
I have the old proposed ordinance. We could obviously make changes as needed if that's something you would guys, it's really not, it's 3 sections, it's not particularly long. But I think we would just need to strike a few provisions to put it,
Is that what staff is asking for us to do tonight?
I mean, we're not going to suggest that, you do this that quickly unless you feel, you can and you're comfortable with it. If you are, then Brody would be able to take a few moments, redo that, and we can bring it back at the end of the meeting. But if you're uncomfortable, we understand that. We brought you things very late because we learned about them very late. So if this requires yet the next reading, then we understand that as well.
So
I
I had,
received way too many emails on the first proposal to just do this tonight. I anticipate we'll hear more feedback personally.
so I had a question for Mr. Conover, because this is literally changing before our eyes. 1009 Grove is owned by Abilities First Foundation. I was checking it earlier, of which I'm a volunteer member of the board. It's leased to these folks over here. And then, I don't know, would this contract be with Abilities First? Would it be with the folks that are leasing it? And do I have a conflict that would allow me not to vote? Or maybe delaying it a day or two or till a special meeting would allow you time to thoroughly research that if you don't have an answer right now?
Yeah, I think, we've obviously sorted through a lot of different ethics issues over the course of the last few months. Our standard line is the right one, that we don't enforce or arbitrate as the law director Ohio's ethics opinion or ethics laws. That's the Ohio Ethics Commission. I will say that the safest course from the facts that I've learned in the last 10 minutes, probably, it depends, I think, on who the contract's with or who the city's leasing from. My guess is it's probably a sublease or assignment of the lease. You're probably a step removed. That said, I think maybe perhaps if you do vote tonight, I think it'd probably be wise to abstain. If you want to give us a couple of days to, if the motion is set for a special meeting or the next meeting, perhaps we could look at it a little bit more closely and try to understand a little bit more of the facts. But my recommendation, if there is a vote tonight, would probably be to abstain, just an abundance of caution. I don't think there's a benefit to you, but.
Yeah, and just so my colleagues can be thinking about that, I would be abstaining and not participating in any conversation tonight, so however that informs what you want to do tonight, take that for what it's worth.
I have also submitted a request for an absence from the next meeting, so however that would influence the way that this would be voted on.
I believe the charter requires a 3/4 vote of the members of council, so as an emergency at least. So you would need 4 votes to pass it as an emergency.
Which we wouldn't necessarily have at the next meeting.
Unless it was a
We
special.
would have a
I know
quorum
there's-
to be able to do that if we needed.
But we require 4.
As an emergency, it's not a quorum. It's a simple
Right.
3/4.
So we would have 4 of us present. Oh, but if he was a to
That's how
abstain,
we'd have to
I understand.
abstain. So that,
If
Yeah.
research says.
Again, I've learned it at 6:35, right before we came back into session.
I have a question about the shelter itself. Is this congregate housing? Is it non-congregate?
They have a large entry room that most of the individuals would sleep, but they would have the ability to separate children and women in different rooms. It does have 2 bathrooms, a male and a female bathrooms, so they have 2 exits. But it would be just a large, huge room where the monitor and obviously the fire personnel would be. So it was a little bit bigger facility than a Central Avenue, but it does give them the ability to separate families and kids, and there are a few.
But in
of those.
general, it's a congregate setting?
Yeah.
Okay. Because and this is more for Mr. Palaniuk, I'd like to know where you're getting the home ARPA regulations from, because I went to HUD's website directly, and it says, it contradicts what you've put forth to us, and actually specifically says that it has to be non-congregate shelter. So I'm not even sure these funds would qualify for it. I mean, I'd like to look into that a little more, but here's specifically from their website, it says that the money is to assist individuals or households who are homeless, at risk of homelessness, and other vulnerable populations, which is a much broader diaspora than what was put forth in this staff report, by providing housing, rental assistance, supportive services, and non-congregate shelter to reduce homelessness and increase housing stability across the country. And then it says the funds can be used for 4 eligible activities. 1, the production or preservation of affordable housing. 2, tenant-based rental assistance. 3, supportive services, homeless prevention services, and housing counseling. And 4, purchase and development of non-congregate shelter. I think we need to, I don't know where, I guess I'd like to know where you got the use.
Providing emergency shelter from the elements, I think, is a very clear allowable use for that. I have all of those same things that you're talking about, and I don't think there's any problem with it. So
Well,
obviously, that's what we believe, that's what we put forward, and we can get you a legal opinion if you'd like it.
I just want to know where we're pulling it from, because the staff report said it must be used to house the homeless or those in imminent threat of being homeless. And from what I read on the home funds, it has a much broader opportunity for use than that.
I think is distilled to a single phrase, all of those fall within that category. That is, it has to be for providing shelter or homes for the homeless. It is not for anyone who is otherwise capable of providing or getting or seeking out other kinds of shelter. They can afford it in other ways.
Is that the funds could be used for supportive services and not necessarily for housing itself, if we so desired to use it in a different fashion.
Supportive services as part of providing shelter to the homeless, yeah.
Right, but say we wanted to use it for an increased contract with one city, for example, to help people who want to get help, put them in extra programming, whatever that might be. To me, that's how I read that we could use it for supportive services like that. And I just want to make sure that we aren't being pigeonholed and that the verbiage of what we can use this for is not restricted from what is actually on HUD's website that I can find. So I just, because that's what's put in the staff report, that it must be used to house the homeless or an imminent threat of being homeless. And I see a lot of other options based on the HUD's website from that.
Appreciate your interpretation, thank you.
It's not my interpretation, I'm just looking at it and I want to have an actual discussion. Can we use it for more than just housing the homeless?
You can use it for the housing of homeless and other supportive services related to the housing of homeless. I think that's pretty clear.
Okay, then the staff report is more restrictive than what the funds can be used for, just so council is aware. We can use it for more than just that. I'm not saying we shouldn't use it for this, but the words are really important. And because when we're trying to decide what to use all of these home dollars for, we need to understand that it's not just to house the homeless. There's a lot. And I personally want to see us use it to help people who want to get help and get them services. And as much as we can do that, I want to do that. Because we right now have our COP units going out twice a week with One City for Recovery, which sounds like it's doing a great job. And they are finding people who want to get help and getting them the treatment. I think they're finding also a lot of people who don't want to get help. And I would like us to work on those who are willing. Let's get them all the help we can and get them off the street and get them into a success story, right? Get them to be tax-paying citizens. And that's where I want to really focus our dollars on. And I just want council to know that of all these funds, we can use it for more than just that. So let's just keep that in mind as we move forward and how we're going to choose to allocate all of those, because there's more than obviously is being discussed tonight as well.
I think we're also talking about 50,000 or 60, however much we allocate for this program, of a total over $1 million of home funds that can be used for those different projects. And I think we have to evaluate this for what it is, and if we have other uses for that money in other ways and other programs that can also help, then we talk about those things separately. But I think that the merit of this project is what we're talking about right now, not how we're going to use the rest of that HUD funding. I think that is a great topic for our, strategic session. If that is something that we want to talk about, let's talk about that at a strategic session and say, what other ways can we spend this money to really help alleviate this problem? So I think that's,
Absolutely. I just want to clarify
take that
what
and
was
make that
put before
something-
council. which is not accurate.
I thought the same thing, that we could only use it for housing the homeless from the interpretation that I received. So I understand what you're saying as far as.
Here's the thing, I totally understand and agree with what Nicole's saying, or what the mayor's saying, sorry. I do, I see there's different things with that, but on the flip side of that also, I think we lose our humanity, and I hate pulling this card, but I'm the only one up at this table who's been on patrol at 3 o'clock in the morning and saw people sleeping in Smith Park when it's 20 degrees out. That's my issue with it. I've seen it. I've been out there in the trenches. I think the mayor's correct. I mean, if we can use other things, not everybody wants help. I get that. She's 100% correct about that. But I think we lose our humanity when we start talking dollars over helping people. That's just me. It doesn't mean I'm right. It's just my opinion. But I know there's people out there that do need help and don't have anywhere to go, and that's the issue, I think. With that being said, if there is other ways to use these dollars and we can do that, I think we need to take a good hard look at that also, because I thought the same thing that the mayor did. I thought that was all we could use it for. But in this particular case, we have people that do need a place to go, and it's personal for me for certain reasons I won't get into. But I think that the question here is, do we help right now while we can with what we have and move forward on it? If we choose not to do that, then that's what we choose. But I think in this case, we move forward on it, and then we stipulate in the future what we can do with these dollars. That's just my opinion. And I think we lose our humanity as a people when we start dismissing people that do need help. And there are people out there. I've picked up homeless that don't want to go to a shelter, I can tell you that, on patrol, and that did not want my help to go anywhere. But I've also picked up people begging for help. And I think we need to look at that. The situation on Grove Street, I met with the owners last week, had a great meeting. They were sincere in their approach. I think, talking to them, that location is perfect because it's right next to where they need to be with the Hope House and other things. And I talked to the Hope House people today. There's opportunities for them to go to the Hope House. When this is up, when the warming shelter closes, or when they have to leave, they can go to the Hope House. There are options out there. As far as the language and verbiage in the staff report, maybe it could be changed. And I'm glad you picked it up because I certainly didn't pick it up, so nice job. But we're here to talk about what we can do to help people who are out there now who need help.
If I could add a couple things. As we started out saying, we put together a ad hoc committee to look at the overall problem of homelessness, and we do in fact have a plan, and you will be hearing about it at the strategic session. So the vast majority of the $1.3 million will be targeted in that regard. This is a very tiny, small portion that, again, dealing with warming for the shelter. The other thing I wanted to note is we have nearly $1 million through the opioid settlement that can and should and will go toward treatment and recovery, particularly people within the homeless population. So there are other sources of funds, there are other issues, we can do all of that, we're aware of all of that. And that doesn't take away from the fact that these funds can be used for this purpose, and nothing in that staff report was inaccurate.
Well, it says the funds must be used. If it said the funds can be used, that's a different
Must be
story.
used to house homeless. Yeah, that was not inaccurate.
It is inaccurate. It says that the funds can be used to create supportive services as well, housing counseling, prevention services.
But all of that is associated with the provision of housing for the homeless.
It is not Okay. We'll just agree to disagree on that. I think it was deceiving about the intent of them, but perhaps you saw it in a different way, and I'll understand that and move on from there.
Let me ask a question. When we were putting the homeless into hotel rooms and had the vouchers and everything, who took the liability for the hotel rooms at that point if something bad was to happen in a room?
I'm trying to recall, we had developed a contract because as you might imagine, it was very hard to find a hotel that would do this, so we had to put a contract together. And I don't know, Brody, if you were involved in any of that discussion, but
I recall the situation. Obviously, it was a hot point at the time. I recall there being a contract. I do not. I think this is 3 years ago or 2 years ago. I don't remember drafting it.
yeah,
Well, I just asked because I know people have reached out to me and said this idea, but baseline, isn't this a better deal for the city to essentially outsource this to somebody that's an expert in this?
and that's kind of the problem. You're saying this type of a thing, because, yeah, we did run into a problem that there really aren't any hotels because of all the concerns that you might imagine that are really willing to just do that. Because in most cases, we are trying to, in effect, push the liability on them, and they're trying to push it back to us.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, if we don't want to take the liability and they would have potentially made us, I mean, why not outsource it to somebody that's an expert?
And that's a really good
This
point.
makes sense.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, can we discuss an executive session tonight about this, whether we want to hear this tonight? Is that something we can do?
No. I don't believe that, well, I'll look at Brody, but I don't think that the legislation under executive session allows anything that would, it's a policy question. It's just
There's
a
also,
policy.
Well,
I mean, I
there's-
don't think anything that we're discussing probably, we'd rather have it in open session anyway about this topic.
I don't think there's a legal exemption to go into executive session to discuss this.
Is there any, can we even vote on this tonight? Is that even?
That's what
an
I'm trying to get
option?
to.
So
Oh,
Brody could read the proposed legislation in its entirety. So that instead of just reading the title, he could.
I mean, do we have a full legislation ready for,
We could make it work if it's something you guys want to do.
I would personally rather, I mean, I'm willing to, come back on Friday or something like that for a special meeting. I don't like rushing something that much. I understand that people are cold and that I get that, but I also think this is a very, very contested topic in our city, and I want to make sure we get feedback from citizens, and this gives us absolutely no opportunity to get any feedback from them. And that doesn't sit well with me.
I would second a request for a special session, certainly considering the fact that I will not be present at the following meeting and that we may have an issue of being able to pass this as emergency legislation with only 3 votes. So I would be willing to come back for another session where we can have a chance to take a look at the actual legislation and get that out to the citizens and at least get a little bit of feedback. I understand the expediency as well of the emergency issue and the housing. So that being said, I do support
And that would give us not only an opportunity to draft the legislation, but also look into Mr. Moon's, ethics question that he presented tonight as well.
So to call a special meeting, I either need for the mayor to request that in writing or 2 council members to request that in writing. I didn't know if you wanted to talk about it now or you wanted to submit it later, but at least now we would be able to,
Oh, as far as timing, is that what you mean?
yes, as far as schedules go, if that's what you really want to do, this might be a better time to figure out what day works.
We
I'm
do just
available
have
on
to
Friday,
give
but-
24 hours notice.
Yes.
So,
So it would have to be maybe Thursday, Friday, one of those 2 days.
I can't do Thursday. I'm in Columbus. Buddy,
I can do Friday during the day.
Friday during the day.
I mean, I'm available on Friday.
Friday early afternoon?
any time of the day is good with me, so.
Zach, what time in the afternoon would work for you?
I can do anytime 1 to 5.
Do you have to pick up your,
I'm good. Whatever's fine.
so Friday, 1 o'clock?
Sounds good.
All right, I'll send an email.
Okay, and I'll prepare that notice. And,
And we'll prepare the legislation, obviously, as well, to make sure you guys can see that.
So unless I hear something different, the only item for that special meeting will be this piece of legislation. Okay?
And will that special meeting allow for time to receive citizen comments?
That is certainly up to council, and if you would like that, I need to know that so that we can, because it's very important that the special meeting is clear about what will happen there.
For transparency's sake, I would like to request that citizen comments be included in that meeting agenda.
I'll put that in my email request.
Thank you.
Sound good? Great.
Amy, what about those who can't make the meeting during the workday? They
Council.
email comments to you?
Council has the opportunity to receive emailed comments. Like I say, on our website, there is a new link that you email all council at the same time. Each one of your names appears there, and people can email you. They can always email me, and as you've seen, I forward those emails to you immediately. So there is an opportunity for people to provide feedback and input. The other thing is if council wanted to, and we've done it before, when the COVID was bad, we allowed people to email their comments, and I read them. So, the ball is in council's court as to what you want to do.
I think for time's sake, we should continue in the method that we're receiving comments right now. But I would also like to make a request. Maybe Mr. Palanick, I'm not sure who's taken over Shelby's responsibilities, but if we could include a link to that email where people can email all of council when we post this on Facebook and wherever else, I think that would be beneficial.
Great.
Got it.
Thank you for everyone who's provided input so far and provided solutions and options. This is a difficult topic for sure, and I know as a community we'll come together and do something great, so thank you.
Okay, agenda item number 8. Ordinance number O-2022-09, an ordinance authorizing a contract with Community Center Partners, LLC, for development consulting services related to the Town Mall Galleria redevelopment project and declaring an emergency.
So move for adoption.
Second?
Mr. Palanick.
Madam Mayor, members of council, you will recall that the city has partnered with Warren County, the Warren County Port Authority, the owner of the mall, the Town Mall Galleria, to first have designed and developed what we call the Rinka Plan, which is a master redevelopment plan for the Old Town Mall. And what came out of that plan, among other things, was a mixed-use, activity center, but that would hopefully be anchored by a destination sports and entertainment type of venue. So we recently put out an RFP, a request for proposal, that would look for a team of consultants that would provide us turnkey services that would do economic structuring, design, planning, evaluation, feasibility studies, everything associated with determining just exactly what such a facility would look like, how it would be structured, what would make it successful, evaluate its success, do enough preliminary design to determine if it could be successful, get us everywhere to a go, no-go decision on knowing whether we could move forward, as well as bringing forth at least 2 letters of interest from potential anchor tenants being entities that would utilize the proposed ice sheets, things such as sports academies, tournament providers, junior or professional hockey leagues, et cetera, et cetera. So the result of that came back. We received a single proposal. That proposal was evaluated and judged and looked at by members of both the city and the city's economic development group, as well as representatives of Warren County and the Warren County Port Authority. We determined that the responsible proposer was and could and did do the things that we were hoping for, and we were satisfied with the cost provided. So we are presenting to you this evening a request for entering into a contract with Community Center Partners, LLC, for development consulting services for the Town Mall Galleria project, the redevelopment. It would be a detailed pre-development effort that would include all of those things I just described. Included in those things would be a preliminary feasibility study That feasibility study would be done by Hunden and Associates, and the Warren County Port Authority has already authorized and approved and has entered into paying the $64,800 plus $3,000 in expenses that would get that Hunden study going. The remainder of the costs associated with Phase 1, in total, the cost for Phase 1 that include that study is $211,500. So excluding therefrom the Hunden study, that would leave $73,350 for each of the Warren County Port Authority and the city to pay as part of Phase 1. And then if or when a go or no-go decision would be determined, if it became no-go, of course, we would end it there and know that it didn't work. If it was a go decision, Phase 2 would cost $263,500 and would be split $118,575 each between the city and Warren County Port Authority, and then $26,350 would be paid by the committed anchor tenant, which represents a National NAHL franchise junior hockey league team that is interested. I have Martin Russell, who is here with us, and we really appreciate his coming tonight. Martin is both the Assistant County Administrator as well as the Warren County Port Authority has responsibility for that. And I would just ask Martin if he would want to say a few thoughts about this process, what we went through, how we came up to the determination, and what we hope to achieve out of this, or anything else that you'd like to add, Martin.
I apologize in advance. I normally speak in front of commissioners, so if I accidentally call you commissioners, then give me there. Actually, the commissioners this morning, through their meeting at 9 o'clock, approved the counter to what you have in front of you is the $73,000. So they are in tune to this. So we really do have a partnership of the Warren County Port Authority, as Jim mentioned, that the Hunden is already moving forward. We've had our pre-calls with them. Once that work is done, we'll assign that to the city of Middletown, since you'll be the lead on that. Well, the reason that we wanted to get that kind of going and out of the door is that the Port Authority has different procurement rules. We have the ability to sit there and kind of go direct out to market. Hunden has been in this market before, and so we wanted to make sure that we had somebody that is proven and has done this. So we went ahead and engaged them a few weeks back, so they're kind of in that stage now. This piece, as Jim said, would be bifurcated between the Warren County Commissioners and the City of Middletown, if you're so inclined to do so. I would just say, from a partnership perspective, it's been great. I think I had a tagline that I didn't realize it was going to stick when I was interviewed with a reporter, that this is one of your front doors in the heart of Warren County, and so we want to see this area significantly take shape. I had the opportunity to be in Chicago, and there's a place that's similar to this, actually not specialized for, it was built more for youth sports, but there's a juniors team that is there, and they told us with the youth sports and the juniors team not going any other entertainment, we were hoping this would be a larger entertainment venue, but they push about 400,000 people through their doors on an annualized basis. So if we can have the opportunity to bring 400,000 people to that area, that then will sit there and bring the rest of the Rinka Plan into fruition, whether that be the office, the hotel, the food and beverage. I've been approached by folks relative to the hotel component of that, and I think with the anchor, the hotel, the food and beverage, and those items will sit there. If you take the notion that the mall owner has dedicated in written form to Mr. Palahniuk that this Rinka Plan goes forward, that the land would be donated to this project, I think that's even telling. You've got the private side, you've got the public sector, you've got a lot of folks coming together to sit there and make. From the Warren County Convention and Visitors Bureau, I sat on that board. We're excited about this. Sports tourism is significantly important to Warren County, evidenced by the fact that we just opened up a $15 million sports complex. They have not had anything of this caliber to be able to go out and sell. If you look at our CVB and what we're able to sell with our youth sports and sports tourism, this would just be another thing, and specifically what they call in the CVB world, the shoulder months. There's a lot of people that come to Warren County, specifically in the summer months because of outdoor, but it tails off in the winter because you can't play soccer necessarily in this kind of weather, but you can play hockey, you can do indoor lacrosse, you can do ice skating, you can do a whole host of things inside. So we're very pleased to sit there and stand in front of you as partners, whether it be as I represent the Port Authority, as I represent the county commissioners, that we'd like you to accept this, join in with us, and get to that point where when Jim said if and when, hopefully it's a when that we're moving forward, because I know that I've had an opportunity to speak with some of you, that this is a very big priority for you, and we want to see this across the finish line. So, I don't know if there's any questions that you have of me or not.
Not a question, but please take back to the commissioners and your staff our appreciation for the partnership, and it's just tremendous. So thanks for all your work.
No, not a problem. As I said to a few before, is the staff here have been great to work with. It's been nice to sit there and come over and be much more present in the city, and we are very gracious that you've allowed Jim and his staff to come over and be a partner with us. So it's something that him and I have talked about. Outside of this, will grow hopefully our relationship between the two communities going forward. We needed a project like this, and I think it'll have some legs, and it'll be if we can, would love to sit there. We've got some folks that are working with us that have done items in Austin Landing that said if we can get this anchor going, he believes the private sector will bring between $130 and $150 million worth of investment. If we can make that happen, I would gladly stand there with you and everybody else to make sure we're turning the dirt and cutting the ribbons. Anything else?
Thank you very much,
By
Martin.
the way, I have to
Appreciate
get to
it.
a baseball practice, so that's just one of those.
Thank you.
So with that, we would entertain any or all questions that you would have with regard to this.
I did have a question. I believe I sent an email on it, but wanted to ask, because I know the staff report says we're going to use revenue replacement ARPA for this. I remember having a conversation in executive session pre-pandemic about this, and if there's an opportunity to use a different bucket because it was a project delayed to COVID, I'd love to reserve those revenue replacement dollars for something that we might be more flexible about. So maybe that's something staff can look into, or maybe you've already looked into it, but just wanted to pass that along.
Yeah, we have a lot more flexibility when we do the revenue replacement, and it looks like we may wind up having more of it under that particular category than we earlier anticipated. So it is just, there's a lot more, strict specific guidelines if you're trying to follow some of the other issues as opposed to the revenue replacement.
Okay, so you feel like this is the best way. Okay.
What other projects has Community Center Partners worked on or completed? I see they're working on something in Pickerington, Ohio, but that was a year ago. It's very similar status to this one, and I haven't seen any update since then on that. And on their website, I can't find any other projects listed.
They represent a larger team, and I think as part of their whole proposal, they listed quite a number of different projects that they've been involved with. Because they have designers, they have construction people, they have finance people. It really does take a team that have all of these various skills. And so it's kind of all of those things together.
I thought that the packet had a whole bunch of different pictures of all the stuff that they had done.
Yeah, I mean, it was 105
Unless
pages.
I misunderstood.
A very, very detailed 105 pages. And that was another thing I was
Unless I'm
really could have used to get some of this.
Unless I'm reading it wrong, Rose Bowl renovation, Missouri State JQH Arena, Gonzaga University, Irvine Ice Fountain.
Is that all community center partners themselves? Or is it the,
Well, there's Kuda Rock in there too, it looks like, Minnesota.
yeah. Do we know the status of the Pickerington is in southeast Columbus, correct?
Yep.
Does anybody know where that one, or how that's progressed over the last year? I know there were articles in January this year from that one.
Community Center Partners brings this entire team together. So they have a high-quality designer, they have a high-quality financial consultant, they have engineers, builders, and then, of course, they have lots of relationships across the depth and breadth of the ice hockey world as well as sports and entertainment world. And then they put together people like Hundon and Associates and others that do the economic structuring. So, individuals may have worked on some projects and others worked on others, but in combination, together they've worked on lots of different projects. They bring lots of different years together. And they also were able to bring us, obviously, the two letters of intent that would add 2 additional anchor tenants, potentially if we can follow through and meet their needs, in addition to the NAHL junior franchise team. And that was a big, big piece of it, obviously, to be able to make that happen.
Has any staff members worked with this group in the past in any capacity?
I have worked with at least one of the people that are now with Perkins and Will, who is an architect. At the time, he was with a firm called Sink, Combs, and Detlefs. So I have that experience. Also, I've worked with International Coliseums Corporation at one time. I don't know if Martin has worked specifically with, I don't know, maybe Martin left by now. Martin left, he took a while. If he has any specific background with any of those folks.
And I would just note also that this is for consulting services is what the organization does. They have the teaming agreement, which I believe you guys may have seen, that puts together the entire team of 8 to 10 folks that do kind of different services. So I only point that out to say that, these individual companies do the work, and this consulting company is the one that brings them all together to facilitate the development. And that's what the port and the county have engaged with. And obviously the ask for the city is tonight as well.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I read that CCP will also automatically serve as the development manager of the project.
I believe that's correct in the contract, yeah.
One thing that's impressive to me is, because I'm leery about anything like this. I naturally am suspicious about it, but if Warren County commissioners jump on board with it, that tells me all I need to know from the consulting standpoint, because they're a tough group to crack, and they're very meticulous and they're very picky about what they choose to invest in. So that makes me feel good about this. I have a lot of questions, but I'm pretty excited about the prospect of this.
Is the Middletown Port Authority involved? I thought they were going to be involved in it. It looks like the city of Middletown is listed instead of the Port Authority.
Middletown Port Authority has a partnership agreement with the Warren County Port Authority. So that's yet to be determined because that's part of the economic structuring. But likely the Warren County Port Authority has a major involvement in this. There may be some involvement by the Middletown Port Authority, but it's yet to be determined.
And just a question, what is the wellness and health facility, or is that still to be flushed out depending on interested private parties, or?
Definitely still to be fleshed out, but part of the Rinka Plan contemplated a health and or wellness component. And I think when you think about what we're talking about, which is very athletic, very tied to athletics, tied to junior sports, junior tournaments, there's a natural connection there with wellness, with sports medicine. So our belief is it will not be difficult to get a major player that wants to be part of the sports medicine, athletic wellness part of this.
I would just thank staff for all their work. It's a very thorough packet. And we're talking about $200 million, it sounds like, in potential investment, and that would just be a game changer for that mall in the east end of, the whole city. It'd be a game changer for the whole city. So I'm excited to support this tonight.
Who, in the end, would be the owner-operator of, the sheets of ice specifically?
There probably will be a difference between the owner and the operator, but it is yet to be determined. But because of the nature of the kind of public financing that will be required, it's likely that the owner would be either a port authority or a new community authority or some other special purpose 501c3 entity created to do it. It would definitely not be owned by the city of Middletown or Warren County, but it would be some limited liability special purpose entity that would have no additional financial liability that could accrue to either of those jurisdictions.
It sounds very exciting to me. I think, the concept of getting to the point of ribbon cutting is exciting. My mind goes to, and then what happens when a Tier 2 hockey team disbands after 5 years, like Tier 2 hockey teams have, right? They don't stand around forever. So I always think about the sustainability of these things, and that's what keeps me up at night. How do we, get to the point where we know that, well, it's great to have an anchor tenant in there now, and I hope they stick around forever, and we'll absolutely support that, as long as we're able to. But, what happens on the day where those anchor tenants aren't there? And does that then fall onto our citizens' tax dollars, which has happened in a lot of these situations to keep them up and running? And what does that look like? And do we have the private investor standing behind it, or does it end up, becoming something that we have to fund as a city long-term? And I know we can't have all those answers tonight. I just want to express that that's where, I'm just constantly thinking about that in a project of this scale, and how, how we keep that from happening, and how we can structure this the best way so that that doesn't get to that point. I notice Exhibit A, it says property description, and there's nothing there. Is that intentional? And you probably need to.
We wanted to have it be precise and specific. It just hadn't been completed yet. It's largely the area that encompasses what used to be the Elder Bierman store and a portion of the mall that extends from it.
Do we have private investors that have indicated interest in standing behind this at all at this point?
When you say private investors to stand behind what exactly?
Any of the ice hockey portions specifically?
Well, we have the 2 letters of intent as part of this package from
From tenants.
an academy,
Right.
as well as from a tournament provider, and a third from the NAHL franchise owners. And of course, much of the private investment that will attach itself to the project generally will come as a result of the idea that such a facility would exist there and generate 400,000 visitors a year. So, that's what really drives, and that's the reason for wanting to do something like this, all of that private sector investment. So when Martin mentions that, a well-known developer in the region talks about $130 to $150 million and feeling comfortable with it, that if this can be delivered, then that follows suit.
I see Todd Duplain was referenced. It said the city had invited him to the table. Where do discussions stand with him, or is he still in the picture?
Todd has very much been a part of, I'll call, our team. He's been a consultant and a participant, and someone who is very interested in ultimately becoming part of that private sector investment. But again, wants to see this continue to move forward, and I think you'll see he and others like him continue to gravitate to it.
And just one more question, the mall owner, how does he play into the whole thing, or what's in it for him? Where does he stand? Does he own the properties in the end? Who's owning what? Is that something you're able to speak to?
Obviously, Mr. Rageb, who is the mall owner, he has partners as well. His desire is to have this successful, because if it's successful, he can then sell off these properties, for, a higher amount than they're worth today. And so the goal is, I don't think he has a long-term interest in owning or maintaining the mall, but he would like to have it get redeveloped and in the process profit from the redevelopment of it, and recognizes that by having this major generator of interest in visitors, that the rest of the property becomes that much more valuable. So that's why he's committed to provide, the land essentially up front with little or no cost, knowing that it adds that much value to what he has later. He also is the partner financier behind the K1 Speed, so he's got a commitment to do that. And we talked about private sector investment. That is definitely coming, and that's a part of he and his partners. He also would like potentially to be some part of the apartment development that will be done there, so he could yet become a part of that, or he could sell it to an ultimate developer. So he may or may not have, greater participation. It depends on, ultimately what those negotiations look like.
Okay, so he's looking at possibly mid-project selling off portions as it goes, essentially.
Yeah, I think
Or-
ultimately we have to be able to make pad sites available for the hotelier that comes in, or the medical sports medicine person that comes in, or the restaurants or the bars or the things of that nature.
Any other comments or questions from council?
Sure, I'll have a lot later, but right now, it's the beginning stages, so I don't think I have any.
Okay. I think we already have a motion and a second, right?
We do, yes.
Okay, Ms. Skank, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Muterspaw?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Okay, agenda item number 9, resolution number R 2022-03, a resolution authorizing the city manager to apply for and accept a SAFER grant from the Department of Homeland Security and declaring an emergency.
So moved for adoption?
Second.
Mr. Palanick?
Madam Mayor, members of council, we had, if you will recall, last year, applied for a staffing for adequate fire and emergency response grant through the federal government, also known by the acronym SAFER, for 6 additional firefighter EMTs. The 2020 cycle, we were not funded for those. At the time, that would have funded us 6 new positions for 3 full years at 100%. That request was worth $1,561,387. They've turned around a second cycle for that in 2022. Those grants are due by February 4th, so very soon. In the meantime, with our fiscal year 22 budget, we authorized, approved, and are now in the process of hiring 3 new additional firefighter EMTs in our fiscal year 2022 budget. So as a result of that, we are asking you to authorize us to submit a SAFER grant for 4 additional firefighter EMTs that would be covered 100% for a 3-year period. The value of that is $1,079,875.65. We would be obligated then at least to cover their salaries for a 4th year. On the city budget at that time, that's estimated cost of $371,122. By doing this, if we were successful, we would be that much closer to fulfilling the staffing requirements and protocol that we have negotiated over time with our firefighters collective bargaining unit, and getting a lot closer to the staffing analysis that had been done in recent years. So this is a request on behalf of the fire department. I know Chief Lally is here. He can speak to it in greater detail if you have any other further questions, but we think it's a great opportunity. Hopefully we will be successful this time. I think we've learned some things from our request last time. We'll try to incorporate those into this grant, and we ask for your approval.
Any comments or questions from council? All right, Lolly gets off scot-free. Ms. Skank, you please call the roll?
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Muterspaw?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Agenda item number 10, resolution number R 2022-04, a resolution authorizing the city manager to accept a grant from the State of Ohio Department of Development Water and Wastewater Infrastructure Program and declaring an emergency.
So moved for adoption?
Second.
Mr. Palanick?
Madam Mayor, members of council, this one's even easier. All we have to do is accept a grant from the Ohio Department of Development's Water and Wastewater Infrastructure Program. Approximately 75% of our total project cost for our filter backwash project at the water treatment plant, amounting to $1,125,000 in grant funds. We would then be responsible to pay the additional 25% out of our water capital reserve budget. Obviously, we were going to pay 100% of this, so hats off and kudos to Scott Tadish and Nikita Lancaster, particularly Nikita, who's done a lot of work on this, a lot of success with it. So pleased to offer the opportunity to accept over $1 million in grant funds that will assist us in doing a much-needed project at our water treatment plant.
Any comments or questions from council? Okay, Ms. Skank, please call the roll?
Mr. Muterspaw?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Ms. Nenny?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Agenda item number 11, ordinance number O 2022-10, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing a contract with Clara Technologies LLC for the purchase of software and replacement equipment for the automated meter reading system. This is a first reading.
Mr. Pelenick.
Madam Mayor, members of council, back in 2005-06, the city did a wholesale replacement of our water meters. At the time, we replaced them with all of the automated meter transmission units. It was a complete change out, about a $9.5 million project. Those had a useful life of about 15 to 20 years. So what we're finding is we're reaching that point now that most, if not all, of those units have to be replaced. So in 2021, as part of the budget, you authorized and we approved 5,376 of those MTUs. And we're finding they are going out of commission much faster than we thought, and it really is appropriate to completely replace the remainder. That is 13,490 units. So we're asking essentially to enter into a contract with Clara Technologies to waive the bidding process, because this is a sole source. This is the infrastructure, the technology that we are already using. To completely change them out again would be back in the $10 million plus range probably. But instead we would be purchasing that many, over 13,000 new units, delivered between quarter 1 of 22 and quarter 3 of 23, cost of $85 per MTU, or a total of $1,142,400. Additional cost to the upgrade is $72,803. Annual support payment of $43,000, so the total required payment in this case is $1,215,223.75. Funding would come out of our water and sewer capital funds, equally 50% each. We believe this is appropriate, and we would ask for your approval.
Do the updated units have any longer lifespan?
Nikita or Scott, question for you all.
Sounds like we only got the bare minimum out of the ones we just got.
Unfortunately, it's kind of just like the nature of the beast with that. I mean, that's equipment, it's technology, it's just going to fail. I agree. I think we're unfortunate we're getting 15 years, not 20 years on them, but
So is their anticipated lifespan of the newer version the same, 15 to 20 years? Is that what they're, okay. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, we're ready for the next item then.
Agenda item number 12. This is ordinance number 0, or God, goodness, it's late, sorry. 2022-11. An ordinance authorizing a lease of a portion of 1707 runway, also being part of the city-owned Middletown Regional Airport property, to Safe Skies Aviation LLC. And this is also a first reading.
Mr. Pelenick.
Madam Mayor, members of council, Safe Skies Aviation has been with us out at Hookfield as a major business there since 2005. They've been leasing space from us. They've been growing as a business. They've been a really good local business. You might notice them also as the entity that has been filling in as our interim FBO while we're bringing a new management contract forward. So while that isn't their business specifically, they were willing to jump in and at least take an interim contract to do that as well, just to keep continuity at the airport. So this would be them continuing to lease the portions of the main hangar at 1707 runway for a 5-year term, with the opportunity for 4 renewals of 5 years each at $3,500 a month for the initial term. And then with any of the renewal terms, it would go up by 2% per year in each of those renewal terms. A very good business. This isn't a fully competitive lease, but somewhat subsidized, obviously, because they have been very good business, and we like to keep them there. We like to incentivize them to not only be there, but to continue to grow in the community.
Any comments or questions?
Okay, and agenda item number 13. This is ordinance number 2022-12. An ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into contract with the Middletown Visitors Bureau for the acceptance of American Rescue Plan Act funds. And again, this is a first reading.
Mr. Palaniuk.
Madam Mayor, members of council, you will recall that when we approved our fiscal year 22 through 24 ARPA budget, included in there was $224,000 to go to the Middletown Visitors Bureau, specifically because a big part of the ARPA legislation was ways to counter the negative economic impacts of the pandemic on the hospitality and tourism industry. So the idea was that we would go to the Visitors Bureau and ask them specifically for how they would spend those funds in the most highly prioritized and meaningful way from their own mission, vision, board standpoint, whatever. So we asked them for a budget. They produced that, and we are now putting that forward for allocation ultimately to be approved to provide to them so that they would have these resources available to do the kinds of things that they not only want to be doing to sort of get back out of the pandemic, but deal with some of those negative economic impacts. And I know we had arranged to have a Zoom link for Mary Huttlinger. Mary is the executive director of the Middletown Visitors Bureau, and I was hoping she could be here to answer any questions that you may have. And I don't know if that link is still up or available.
We're at the very beginning of the meeting.
Oh, Mary, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Great. Okay, thank you. We just can't
Hi.
see you. I just wanted to. I know it's been a long
Oh,
night.
I can turn on my camera. I wasn't really.
Okay. So anyway, I just, we wanted to present this. Obviously, it's the first reading. It's a budget based on what the Middletown Visitors Bureau felt was the most appropriate use of the funding. Mary's here to answer any questions that you have. With that, we would entertain anything that, Mary, you wanted to present, or just questions from the council.
Sure, I'm happy to say a few words just about the proposal. Basically, what we did was we took a step back and really looked at partnering our overall mission with an elevated response to COVID. And so not only just telling our vibrant and authentic story that attracts visitors, but being proactive in the space that encourages aggressively people to visit Middletown. And over the past 2 years during COVID, the Visitors Bureau has been proactive in creating space that has created 3 specific assets that have proven to bring people into Middletown from non-Middletown zip codes. And those 3 programs specifically are geocaching. We're going into the 3rd year of this. Last year, we launched a 3-day event. And the old adage, if you build it, they will come, for geocachers held true. We welcomed over 500 visitors over 3 days. So it was successful in a Visitors Bureau most fundamental goal of heads and beds. So we are asking to use some of the ARPA funding to continue our partnership with the National Geocaching Organization and continue hosting that event every year in Middletown. The second investment bucket would rally around the Mural Walk. Again, this was another program that we launched 2 years ago at the advent of COVID under the auspices of it being an outdoor and friendly, safe activity. Plus, it was already there, so we put a bow on it and packaged it and marketed it. To date, over 13,000 unique downloads have occurred for the Mural Walk. Our plan is to expand the Mural Walk with some additional loops and spurs. And so we would use some of this ARPA investment to formalize that, update the website, and produce collateral. And then, of course, boost that out on digital platforms with paid marketing campaigns. And then the third and final bucket is investing in the continuation of Portopia. This is a 3rd program that was conceptualized actually before COVID, but we used our downtime over the COVID months to really build the internal infrastructure of this particular exhibit and what it would look like and how it would function. spent time raising money, mapping out what it would look like. I think the first year, while we weren't at the numbers that we had hoped for, we're off to a good start in that we welcomed guests from over 153 zip codes throughout the greater Midwest area, though not including Middletown. So as the city manager indicated, we provided just an outline for 2022 and 2023 of what we would like to use the ARPA investment for with regards to these three different buckets. And with that, I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Mary, thanks for all that you do for the city and for the Visitors Bureau. I just have a few questions. So about the geocaching,
Yes.
how many of those participants are from out of town, as in a distance that would necessitate heads and beds if you're keeping track of zip codes, versus local people who want to staycation, participate in something fun locally?
Absolutely. So with regards to the 3-day event, we had 15% of the attendees were from the local Middletown area. Everyone else was from somewhere else.
And does that break down even further to like a distance that would necessitate an overnight stay in town?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. My apologies. I don't have that information directly in front of me. I will say I attended 2 different geocaching events last year to do our due diligence to see if it was worth investing in an event. And geocachers, it is their hobby. They're diehard at it, and they are not opposed to traveling and spending money on hotels. I'm more than happy to get the specifics for you, breakdown of the people who participated in the 3-day event last year. To you.
Cool. And then I just had a similar question about Portopia. Do we have any sort of data there about how many people were coming from distances so far out of town that they're staying overnight or?
Sure. The crux of the visitors were from the Dayton, Cincinnati, Columbus metropolitan areas. But we do have some outliers from the Cleveland, Indianapolis, and Lexington, Louisville zip codes. And I know that several of those families did make overnight stays at Indigo Pass and at Hampton Inn where we offered specials. And I do have an exhaustive breakdown list of those zip codes as well that I can make available.
Yeah, so was Portopia an event that sort of piggybacked on other things? Like it was something to offer people who were coming in town for, say, a different event, and it's, oh, well, if you're in town, we have this, and this is how you access the tickets. Was there any sort of cross-marketing for other events that were bringing people into town?
That's a great question. So we had specifically picked that date as a launch to tandem with the Middletown Arts Festival, which unfortunately did not happen last year. So that was our goal to do that. And then Hoopla came around, and we did co-market to a certain extent. A lot of our marketing was fixed marketing with a third-party contractor that we had hired to help us. But we did run promos for guests who were at the door. We handed them literature about Hoopla. Obviously, them being so close to one another, it was obvious that was another opportunity. And we did put together packages with discounts. When people bought tickets, they could see where they could go for dinner, where they could stay. We had links to the Sorg So if they wanted to make a whole weekend out of it, and we did have 4 different influencers who came to help us launch Portopia, and we hosted them for full weekend getaways, and they helped promote kind of that whole weekend getaway in Middletown using Portopia as kind of the main event to their followers.
The Portopia exhibit is very cool. If you have not been through it, I would recommend it to anyone who hasn't had the chance. About Portopia, now, does the Visitors Bureau rent that space in Torchlight Pass? And I also was curious about, you said that there was some fundraising that went into financing Portopia for the first year. How much money was raised and how much did it cost you to create Portopia for the first year?
Sure. So we're still, so first question, yes, we raised over $85,000. We're still getting some checks in, so that may be up towards $100,000. As a one-woman show, I'm, constantly pulling all the pieces together, but we had a hard deadline with the beginning of September to launch. And so the Visitors Bureau underwrote a lot of the marketing, and as far as how much money we've made, I haven't run the final reports on that yet. Of course, City Council will be one of the first to get copies of that. As with any first year project or retail operation, we knew that probably the first year we weren't going to break even or get anywhere near that. And we knew that this was going to be more of a long game. The idea is that we will fundraise for the second iteration moving forward. But keep in mind, I hired consultants last year to help me write grants and to help with fundraising, just because the Visitors Bureau had never had to do fundraising before or write grants, and so we were an unknown entity. So I hired a group out of Cincinnati who were known in the art world and had a reputation that added some credence and some validity to the project. And so the idea is, now that we're a known entity and people have seen, our investors and our supporters and funders have seen Portopia, they know that we can do this. The idea is that the second year ask won't be as much of a heavy lift. However, also understanding that, again, I'm a one-woman show, so I don't want to have to, I need to balance my time wisely. So ideally, I would like to do less fundraising and more operational and more marketing this go around. And there was a third question. I don't remember what it was.
I was curious about the rent or lease situation.
Oh, rent.
At Torchlight Pass.
Absolutely, yes. So we wanted to do something when we identified the location of utmost importance. We wanted the location to be downtown, and we wanted to be close to the businesses so that people literally could walk out the doors and see all the other things and places to eat and things to experience in the downtown Middletown area. The second thing is, we wanted to make sure that it was close to the Pendleton Art Center. We felt that was really important, as some of the artists participate in Portopia. And then thirdly, we wanted the cheapest rent possible. And so Torchlight Pass offered the second floor for free. So we did not pay for rent for this first iteration. We just paid for electric for the time that we were in that space. However, that situation looks a little different for the second year. And so we're negotiating on what that looks like. They understand that we're not profitable as an exhibit. And so, again, we're trying to develop creative ways that we can pay as little rent as possible, but still be good tenants to the landlords. And one of the models that we're looking at is possibly a percentage of ticket sales plus a base rent.
Mary, did you ever have a chance to send over the statistics of the 5,000 visitors for Portopia?
I did, and I'm more than happy to kind of verbally
Yeah,
go over
I didn't
those
have a
if you would-
chance since I was in appointments up until this, when you probably emailed back, so my apologies.
Yeah, it was this afternoon, so I apologize. I'm more than happy to go over that a little bit if you would like me to.
Yeah, that'd be great if you could.
Sure, absolutely. So we had about 4,200 tickets that were used. That does not include school groups that we had through. That was a gratis. Anytime high school or the junior high or Cincinnati State or Miami wanted to bring a class, even elementary school kids, we said bring them through. We thought that was important for them, one, to have that experience, but two, I think many of y'all will recall last year we really wanted this to be an inclusive experience, so we really agonized over not only ticket prices but how available we would make this to the community. So we sold 945 tickets. This is our tickets that we sold where we actually got money from the sales. We had ticket tiers, just to recap, for adults, students, first responders, seniors, military, youth, children 4 and under were free. So we also, knowing that this was the first year of this project, we knew we had a couple of big hurdles to overcome. One, that it was a new project. 2, that it was in Middletown, and 3, that it was immersive art. And so we knew that we were going to have to be really aggressive, not only in our marketing, but also giving away tickets. So we partnered with Cincy Saver. In exchange for a certain number of tickets, they provided us with free digital and radio marketing. So through Cincy Saver, we issued 1,198 tickets that were redeemed. We had the same partnership with Cincy Deals, where, again, in exchange for digital and radio marketing, we gave them free tickets. And through that partnership, we issued 814 tickets that were redeemed. We did have the foreign exchange group through Miami wanted to buy tickets in support of this. So we sold them 200 discounted tickets. And then we realized about halfway through, when we ran analytics on who was buying our tickets, that nobody from Middletown was coming to Portopia. And so we went back to our partners at Rev Local who were doing our digital marketing, but we also decided to implement guerrilla marketing tactics. So we had 3,500 postcard pass tickets printed up, which our staff handed out. And of those postcards that were redeemed or handed out locally, we had roughly 620 of those redeemed. Now, that's not a perfect science, because we would get postcards turned in at the door, and then the staff would turn around and take those postcards and give them back out again. So please know that's kind of a loose number. We also hosted upwards of 6 private events that were paid for the space, roughly about 250 people. We had 5 photographers pay to use the space for private photo shoots. I actually have a laundry list of photographers who are interested in this arrangement, so we're really anxious to make this a permanent component of Portopia, same with the private events. And then, of course, we gave over 150 tickets away as prizes through our influencers and online digital campaigns. So all in all, over 4,200 visitors. Again, that's loosely because we didn't count all the school kids that came through. But I think that's a lot of traffic for us for only being open on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday for 3.5 months. So all in all, at the end of the day, through ticket revenue, we brought in $16,473 and change. I believe Councilman Farrell asked about Groupon. We did not utilize Groupon this iteration, but do plan to partner with them for the second iteration if we move forward. As I mentioned before, we had 153 different zip codes from ticket purchasers. So these are people who purchase tickets through our online portal. the majority of them coming from Ohio, Kentucky, Michigan, and Indiana. Again, we had 133 tickets bought by Middletown zip codes. The rest were non-Middletonians. So there was also a question, I believe, about economic impact. And the Ohio Department of Tourism has two numbers that they use for just kind of a simplicity's sake for baseline estimation of economic impact of visitors to a community. There's your day trippers, and then there's their overnight stays. So just for the purposes of simplicity's sake, we assume that everybody coming to Portopia were day trippers, and per the Ohio tourism data for 2020, the average day visitor spent per person per visit roughly $106. So if you take that, the 4,000 plus total tickets that we sold that were actually redeemed, that leaves us with an estimated economic impact of roughly $445,000 to the local economy. With regards to digital reach, I think a lot of times this is overlooked when people are talking projects, but we want people outside of Middletown to know that we're open for business. So whether people came to Portopia or to geocaching or to the mural walk, we want them to have Middletown be on their radar. And council members, tenured council members have heard me say time and time again, the old marketing adage, you have to hear messaging anywhere from 5 to 7 times before it resonates with somebody. So through Rev Local and our partnership with them, we put together a comprehensive digital outreach campaign, leveraging multiple platforms where we introduced Middletown to over 725,000 people outside of the Middletown area, introduced them to Middletown and to Portopia. And our website alone, just over 3 months, had over 21,000 unique visitors. And I say this, those numbers blow away the unique visitors of the Visitors Bureau, which is roughly around 5,500 unique visitors a month. So we've definitely, I think we've built a hot commodity, and I think the opportunity is ours for the taking to really, again, put our name beside something that's unique and different that's not found anywhere else in the Midwest.
I really like the geocache and the mural walks. I think they're really great, exciting events that actually bring people through our city and impact the city as a whole. Portopia definitely seems like more of a destination, single destination kind of situation than the other two. And we're looking at 75 to 77% about of the funds going straight to Portopia, which I guess I don't have as easy of a time seeing the ROI to the city at large in the Portopia. It feels almost like an indirect grant to Torchlight Pass and its tenants more than, the city at large. And just looking at, that is a huge percentage of the money, going to Portopia. So I just say that because that's just how it feels, especially when we're talking, about the lodging in there. And
Sure.
It's just not bringing people all the way through the city like the other two are, which I really like the other two quite a bit.
Okay.
It's just a feedback item, on that one. And I would be interested to see all the expenditures on Portopia, like at large, like where all of the funds get spent for that and how that plays out.
Absolutely. We're wrapping up all of our finances from the end of the year, and I will have a Portopia report that I will present to City Council.
Great. That's awesome.
Just a question either for my colleagues or for Jim, not so much for Mary. I guess I would prefer to do 1 year of funding as opposed to do 2 years of funding one time. That way, maybe we could get to the end of the year and look and see, hey, here were the people that came through and reassess next year. Maybe I'm alone on that, but would just,
No,
No, I agree. I was gonna suggest that.
so maybe we could look at splitting it up into,
Yeah, I think that's entirely appropriate. We just wanted to give you the overall scope of things, and, if you wanted to do it in any number of sort of chunks or bifurcate it, clearly that's up to council.
Mr. Palanick, you said you presented the Visitors Bureau with the amount, the dollar amount, and said, how would you use this?
Yes,
Now,
basically.
did they come back with a 2-year plan for the amount of money? Is that how it became a 2-year plan?
Yeah, essentially that's what you see is what they presented back to
So
us.
they wanted to sort of try
I think they
try
wanted.
to spread it out.
Yeah, they could have easily said, hey, we want to have a great program in 1 year, but I think to their credit, they were saying, hey, let's sort of make it go over a 2-year period.
So I just want to say that I appreciate that that was how they came back to want to use the financing. I don't disagree that we should maybe approve each year, so that, maybe we can assess, and maybe there is extreme success in one program or the other, and we can reevaluate after a year. So I don't disagree, but I just want to give credit.
Any other comments or questions? I would definitely be supportive of the two year or single year at a time, only because, especially given COVID situation, who knows how certain events may pan out better than others, and that next year we may find something goes gangbusters that we want to help you allocate where you want to put it. Great. Okay, thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, is that the end of legislation?
That concludes all agenda items on legislation.
Great. That brings us to new business. Do we have any new business items this evening? I had two quick comments. One, I just wanted to circle back, make sure businesses are aware signs cannot cover more than 50% of the windows. I mentioned at the last meeting to the gas station owner who we approved zoning change for that property over on the east side of town. Nothing's changed in the windows of the business that he owns, and I asked to make sure his business is compliant with those. So I just say that because I want to keep up with these things. I really don't want to be tracking down, especially if someone comes to council, we ask them to abide by the ordinance so that we can move forward with something. Would really be nice if they, so I just am noting it for council because I know it's not going to be the last thing that we approve of associated with that property, but those signs have not changed since in the last 2 weeks. So just wanted to bring that up. The other.
Relates to signage too. I know that we previously had a lot of discussion about changes in zoning for allowed signage, blade signs and that sort of thing. We've talked a lot about that. And we continue to see blade signs all over town. And, in violation of our city code. And I think, part of that is not having enough code enforcement officers to really address those concerns. But, I think it's not just the gas stations. I think there are a lot of businesses in town that are utilizing signage that is outside of our allowable signage. So just to add on to that I think that's.
Oh, absolutely.
Something that is a larger concern throughout the city.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm just commenting on the track record of this particular company who's going to be coming before us again for more requests. So, but yeah, very good point. The other one I just want to bring up was just Hollywoodland topic. I'm sure I'm not the only one still being bombarded with questions about Hollywoodland and its future in Middletown. I think our citizens and stakeholders probably deserve an answer and clarity on this, and not just to leave it in this kind of state of purgatory. And I kind of have other things I want to focus my energy on than answering that question every day. So I'm sure city staff also would like that opportunity. My request is to bring it to an official vote at the next meeting if we can, just so that we can move forward and focus on impactful projects in our city and move our city into a successful and fulfilling future. We've got some really great things at our doorstep that the city staff is working on. I'm just seeing if we can't maybe wrap this one up and provide some clarity to the public on it.
Seeing as I will not be at the next council meeting,
Yeah, and I didn't realize that before. I'm not asking to avoid you voting on it. I'm just asking that we bring it to council so we can vote. Or that it's officially retracted in some fashion.
Yeah, I mean, we can we've made public statements, though that project as it was proposed is no longer being worked on, and we're not going to bring it to you. So there's no need to vote on it because it's not coming forward.
Okay. Great.
And that's been
really
an
that's, I
official
guess-
public statement in multiple different venues. That project in that location at this time is not something we are working on, not something we are pursuing.
I think there have also been questions about the ARPA funding, which obviously we also already addressed when we approved the ARPA budget, that is no longer allocated to Hollywoodland, but rather downtown downtown riverfront redevelopment. So that is also not any longer allocated to any kind of Hollywoodland project. So I think that's another question that comes up, just to address that.
Yeah, and I think, as a council, if those funds, we haven't specifically said, yes, we still want it in the riverfront redevelopment area. I personally am supportive of using some of the funds for that. I think if other opportunities come up and we want to split off some of those funds for something else, I'm supportive of that. But it was the framework at the time, and we can reallocate as needed as we go when other projects come up that are deserving of the funds that we want to run with. So.
I agree.
I think that seems to adequately address a lot of the questions that people still have, so.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for having that discussion. I appreciate it. Any other new business items this evening? Okay, then we have a couple executive session topics this evening. We have under the authority of ORC 121.22G1 to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official, and under the authority of ORC 121.22G8 to consider confidential information related to the marketing plan, specific business strategy, production techniques, trade secrets, or personal financial statements of an applicant for economic development assistance, or to negotiations with other political subdivisions respecting requests for economic development assistance, provided that both of the following conditions apply. One, the information is directly related to a request for economic development assistance that is to be provided or administered under any provision of Chapter 725, 725, 1724, or 1728, or Section 701.07, 3735.67 to 3735.70, 5709.40 to 5709.43, 5709.61 to 5709.69, 5709.73 to 5709.75, or 5709.77 to 5709.81 of the revised code, or that involves public infrastructure improvements or the extension of utility services that are directly related to an economic development project. And two, a unanimous quorum of the public body determines by a roll call vote that the executive session is necessary to protect the interests of the applicant or the possible investment or expenditure of public funds to be made in connection with the economic development project. Do we have a motion to move to executive session?
Yeah, motion to move to executive session.
Second.
Ms. King, can you please call the roll for us?
Mayor Condrey,
Yes.
Mr. Farrell,
Yes.
Ms. Nenny,
Yes.
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Muterspaw.
And we will conclude, I guess we'll come back to session to end the meeting after that, with no further business items planned. Our next council meeting would be February 1st. Does that sound accurate? At 5:30 PM?
Actually, no.
Oh,
Our
nope.
next
Well,
council meeting is
as of
Friday.
right now it is, but we anticipate somebody may be asking for a special meeting for Friday to discuss the homeless sheltering, temporary shelters. So we may see a meeting Friday at 1300 here in council chambers. That's the plan. Until then, blue skies over Middletown.
Yes.
Start looking at my calendar.
Thank you, sir.
On the first.